and welcome to the Everyday Board Game Podcast with your hosts, Daniel.
And Daniel.
Daniel, it's spoopy season.
Yeah.
Spoopy.
Spoopy, yeah.
Yeah, spoopy season.
I'm more into the spooky season.
I'm okay with both.
As you can tell. And yes, for everybody who is on the audio side of things as well as the video side of things, there was a special theme for you all. You're going to be getting special themes throughout the month of October.
That's right. So you even showed me the preview of them. It's good stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. This is a season that you and I both really enjoy. This is my second favorite season or holiday is Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Second or third. I would probably say second though.
It's my second.
Yeah.
And I don't really celebrate Halloween all that much. I don't do Halloween parties. I don't hand out candy to trick-or-treaters just for the simple reason my dog is terrified of people coming up to the door.
Sure, yeah.
And so I don't want to deal with that. But this is my favorite time of year because it's starting to get colder. I get to hang out. It's getting darker soon so I can watch more horror movies and stuff like that. Yep. That's my time of year.
So last night or a couple nights ago, I went over to my in-laws' house, and they always watch horror movies every week and all that stuff. And I finally found an opportunity to show them a movie that they hadn't seen before.
Oh God.
No, it's a good one. Well,
good for you is relative.
Yeah, I knew that was gonna come in. Brain Dead, or Dead Alive.
Oh God, you showed them that.
Yes, I did. And my wife doesn't do gore too much. My father-in-law,
so you show her the goriest movie?
The goriest movie of all time. But my father-in-law, the entire time that he was watching it, just cracking up. And then there's some pretty gross scenes. If you guys haven't seen it, it's not for the easily squeamish.
Don't watch it with your kids.
Yeah, don't watch it with the kids. But there's some pretty gross scenes in it, which is pretty funny. I think it's a comedy. It's really just a comedy.
It really is.
But
surprisingly.
Yeah.
Shockingly, Peter Jackson.
Yes.
Lord of the Rings fame.
Yeah, we watched Lord of the Rings the following night. Because why?
Same guy.
Yeah, we might as well watch Get Back from the Beatles tonight, just because Peter Jackson's diverse, right? When it's directing.
Speaking of which, Peter Jackson, but Dead Alive, yes.
Yeah.
Crazy. The lawnmower scene is my favorite scene.
Yes, 200 liters of fake blood every minute. It is so good. I love the scene when he's trying to run away from the zombies and he's just slipping on the blood and just staying in place like a cartoon.
I find
so
it funny.
Good.
You can tell I watch a lot of horror movies. When you said I showed them Brain Dead, Dead Alive, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
The fact that it's not a well-known movie.
No.
And the fact that I knew it.
Yeah. That we've now ran the gamut of all of the horror movies that I know of. I got my in-laws into Evil Dead and all of those. They liked those. We watched Reanimator, which is not one of the best.
It's
but,
okay.
It was okay. And then I showed him Eraserhead because,
Show him
art.
Pumpkinhead. Pumpkinhead's actually kind of good.
Pumpkinhead?
Yeah.
I think we saw Christmas Evil not too long ago. That one wasn't bad.
That's not too bad. But recommendation, if you haven't seen it, it's another Peter Jackson movie.
Bad Taste?
No, it's it's PG-13. So it is actually one of his mainstream films. But it deals with horror aspects in a sense. The Frighteners.
Oh, okay.
I think it's called Frighteners. It's the one with Michael J. Fox in it.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I really do enjoy that one a lot. But yeah, I'm a big spooky season guy. I watch a lot of horror movies. In fact, because we have tickets tomorrow to go to the movie theaters, because on Tuesdays for us when we record, it's always Monday, usually. Yeah. Last week we recorded on Tuesday. But for us, it is a $5 movie premiere. So we're finally going to go see the new Alien movie, Romulus.
So I'm actually going to go see a movie tomorrow, too. We're going to go see the new Beetlejuice.
Yes, we were thinking about going to see that one. I think we're going to wait because my wife is off the week after her birthday.
Yeah.
So we're going to be going to Denver here soon. That's why we're recording ahead of time. Because we're going to be missing some time frames. We're going to be going to Denver soon. And so we're going to take care of that. And then when we get back, she's off for that week. And it was right after her birthday. So we're going to watch Beetlejuice. So because I was planning to watch the Alien movie last week. And she's like, well, I'm going to be working from home. I'll go with you. And I'm like, yes. I've been waiting to watch this for 3 weeks now. All right, I'll hold it back. And then she was like, oh, no, we'll go watch Beetlejuice. I'm like, no. We've already said we're going to go watch this. And so I found out where Romulus is in the timeline. So we've watched all the films up to Romulus. So it's Prometheus, Covenant, and Alien.
Okay.
And then Romulus is in between that and Aliens, which is the second Alien movie in the original quadrilogy, I guess you can say, before the prequel started.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've been watching those, and I'm looking forward to it. And we'll get into it a little bit later, but
I always like the frog song and then hello, mama.
No,
that's sorry.
Spaceballs.
Oh, it's close.
That was Spaceballs. Same guy though.
Yeah.
Same guy.
Yeah.
That's why in the line of Spaceballs, oh no, not again.
Not again. It's such a good.
Yeah, actually, we just watched Alien today while we were waiting for the film, so we watched that, and I still thoroughly enjoy that movie. It's still my favorite Alien movie out of all of them, and is the oldest out of all of them.
Sure.
We just came to the realization that in, I think, 5 years, Alien will be 50 years old.
Woo!
1979.
Woo!
But as you can tell, we're getting into this. We're talking about like the spooky season. That's because our top 8 debate deals with the spooky season. We want to tell the people what it is?
This is top 8 debate for horror movies. Well, games based on horror movies, of course. So we have quite the slate of horror movie themed board games. Now that we've finally played enough that we'd be able to play. Okay, sorry. Let me re-clarify that. Now that you've finally played. No, I was kidding. I hadn't played half of these until.
I was going to say, it was like that one.
No, this has always been on our list of like, we want to do this, and now between us, we had enough games and enough plays where we're like, okay, let's just play these two, and we're good.
We also have a gripe about the category on BGG because movies that should be on, or board games that are based on movies that should be on the list are not on the list, and so it's like so confusing. And then the stuff that shouldn't be on the list is on the list, and we're going to be debating some of these here because there's just some stuff, you know what I mean? So it's interesting how they're going to go around this. I get why a couple of these games, even though they're not based on actual movies, but are based on horror movies in a sense, more thematic-wise rather than IP-wise.
Right.
But no, it is... I have issues with this category because there should be more games on this list that actually fit the criteria.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, we'll get into that here in a bit, but Daniel, what have you been playing lately?
I've been playing a lot, so much so that even up to here, I'm still quite a bit of ways before I can catch up. We may even have to just record like a catch-up video somewhere down the line to talk about all the things we've been playing.
We should do that on one of the days that I've actually been playing games, because I have been slacking on games the past few weeks.
So I'm looking at this. I have a game where I played with my other game group, and then I have a game from... G.A.M.E.R Dom's picks that I want to talk about. And I still have a bunch of games that I have been playing. Like this past Saturday, I got 5 games played.
Yeah.
Some really good ones, and I'll probably talk about them next week. I might have some more games coming up because, like I said, we're recording this before I take my break for going up to Denver, going to a Cubs game and stuff like that. So one of the games I do want to talk about is... a fascinating game that we played with G.A.M.E.R Dom. Mm-hmm. I liked it. It was just recently on, I think, GameFound or Kickstarter. I can't remember what, from Grand Gamer Guilds. I liked what it did, but I don't know if I need to own it because G.A.M.E.R Dom has it, and I know our buddy Gamehead Geek decided to back it as well. And this is Tir Na Nog.
Oh yeah, Tir Na Nog.
And the thing is like...
So good.
It was a really good game, and I really did enjoy it. It was like, but do I really need to have it in my collection? That kind of situation. I found it fantastic. I love how it worked mechanicalistically. I can't talk today. But the reason why I liked it is because the drafting capability on there, and then some of those cards will give you special powers, like you when you're placing your token to say what you're going to end up drafting or trying to draft, you put it between 2 cards. It gives you 2 options just in case your card gets drafted.
Sure.
You had one where it allowed you to put it in the corner, and so you have a choice of 4 cards, so you have a better possibility.
Yeah.
I had an ability later on down the road that if both those cards that I'm trying for get drafted, I can pick up my character and put it into another spot. I also love the fact that it's a tableau building game where you're trying to do 3 different scoring piles but trying to do the tableau right. So like you're basically playing like a Sudoku game with the top row. So you can't have any number shared in the column or any number shared in the row.
Yep.
And this way you can score your points. And I like that little puzzly aspect. I love the fact that the game has so much scoring piles on that aspect. So there's a lot of replayability on there. But my favorite thing of this entire game is the pieces and components. The screen printed wooden pieces, though, were confusing because they really don't show anything other than like this is a loot and this is a story, because those are your storyteller pieces. Mm-hmm. Fantastic looking though, but the art on this game was fantastic. Some of the best art I've seen in a game in a long time.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. And what I really liked about it is when you had different number of cards and you're trying to put them in the same row, because you want to try to do like a grouping as well, because you're going to get points based on your largest grouping of each of the different sets. When you put them next to each other, they build this panoramic view of just whatever it's. So like one is showing like the highlands and another is showing like a bog and stuff like that, and it's a panoramic view, and you have like this great artwork, and it becomes like this beautiful picture once you build it all out. You're playing it within a set amount of rounds. I think you're trying to build a 4x4, or is it a 5x5 or 5x3 grid?
It's 3 rows.
It's 3 rows, but I think it's 5 cards each. So I think you're ending up drafting like
potentially
15 cards.
more if you have the ability to do so.
Or some rows will not be able to have like 5 cards, because one of the abilities is like, oh, you can immediately move it into this other row to score you more points or something like that. And so one row will have 6 cards while the other one has like 4 cards and stuff like that. But honestly, I thought this was a fantastic game, and it's one that I go back and forth on, because I'm like, I really did enjoy it. I really did like it. I would like to own this game, but I don't know if it would play well with my other game group kind of thing, because there's just a little bit of moving parts onto it, but there's a lot of depth to it that can slog it down a little bit. Because there's points where you're just like, okay, if I go here and then I'm doing this, but I'm trying to do this, and it's like, oh wait, it's my turn already? That kind of thing.
Yep.
But it's a fantastic game. Tir na Nog from Grand Gamer Guilds. Grand Gamer Guild.
Yep. First game I want to talk about is one of the more recent games in the Next Move line of... I don't really know what the line is called, but it's really pretty games with 4 letters in the title.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. I mean, you're right. Well, I mean...
Their newest game is 2 words.
Which one?
Tree Society. It's not out yet, but that's their next game, and it's no longer 4 words.
That's true, and one of them was, hey, that's my fish! And, so, yeah, they stretch it a little bit. Yeah. But this was one that just came out a couple years ago. Beautiful little theme, great components. It's called Maui. A trio of designers, but one of which is Sebastian Pauchan, who designed one of my favorite games of all time, G.A.M.E.R. And he's one of those designers that I'm always willing to take a look at one of his games, because I really like some of the aspects that he puts into gaming. Mm-hmm. And Maui was an interesting little, I guess, like a puzzle-laying game where you have little tiles that are beach towels, and there's 3 of them in a row, and they all have a side that are facing upward. On your turn, you're either going to pay some sand dollars and take one of the tiles and place them as the next tile in your row. Going along the beachfront. Mm-hmm. Or you're going to take some of the sand dollars. That's it. That's your turn. But what you're really trying to do is you're trying to kind of outskirt the towels on the outside of each of the levels by pairing them up. Like if I put down one that matches the dark blue and the orange towel, then I get points based on their positioning. The farther away from the center, the more points it's potentially worth. But it's not really like points per se. It's just how many times you move up on that corresponding track.
Okay.
Which does accumulate points, right?
Yeah.
And the more rare tiles, those are worth more points. And also, upon placing those tiles, if you are able to cover up one of your pearls or get like a special tile, then you can move up one of the tracks other than that. It's a very simple game. Beautiful little components. Mm-hmm. I only have one gripe about the components, honestly, because the tiles are really thick, the sand dollars are big and chunky, the wood bits, the shells are nice, like all these things.
I have the same gripe.
I'm curious what yours is.
The player boards.
No, I don't mind the player boards. The thin player boards does not bother me at all, because I've seen other games in their series that had the thin boards. It doesn't bother me at all. What does bother me is that you didn't see it, but there is a like a red and a slightly more red pieces. Like we played with 3 very different.
Oh yeah, the orange, player colors.
But the player colors.
Yeah, someone didn't take the slightly less red.
Yes. Yeah.
Damn It Don played with the darker red.
Yeah. It seemed like that should have been something that was very easy to fix.
I get what they're trying to go for because they were trying to match the colors to like the beach towels and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one.
I liked it a lot.
It was actually my second weakest game of that night.
Right.
The other 3 games that you picked or the other 5 games, there was only one that was weaker to it.
Yeah.
I really liked a lot of the other ones. I'm hoping you're going to talk about one of them because I really did enjoy that one a lot.
Probably. But I know the one that you thought was weaker, right? Time and Space.
Yeah.
And I pretty much agree with you. Like, it was like, the timing, it wasn't bad.
Not that Maui was bad.
Right, no, it wasn't, right?
But you had actually a really strong game night that should have been your game night. That's what's funny about it.
I know. That's the funny part. When I have a week to plan, I'm like, all right, let me really refine these. Like, these are going to be the ones that hit really hard and stuff. And this was like, hey, the night before, Danny, it's your pick.
Because
G.A.M.E.R.
Geek had to cancel because it was a family member's birthday. So he's like, oh, no, I didn't realize it was my such and such birthday. And we're like, okay, Danny, you're up. And you're just like...
All right, I have 1 day to prepare. Here's 2 bags. I was like, we're not going to get through most of these.
And it was funny because we were giving you grief about it. Not just because of the games and stuff like that, because you were reading the rules at the table because you didn't really have a lot of time to prepare. So we were just giving you guff about it.
And so here's the thing, right? I wasn't reading too many rules, but a lot of the games, I will admit, what was the one that I mainly read the rules? Was that it wasn't Time and Space because I didn't have the rules.
Yeah,
I did find them.
You did read Maui's rules because you weren't able to read.
Right, I only watched the video. So I was like, I just want to double check the rules real quick, make sure.
And then there was another game that you read the rules for. Oh, the first one of the night. I don't know if that's your pick.
Nothing Personal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was different, right? Because that one specifically. I found the original How to Play video for the first edition, and that was disappointing how that card was all mangled. Like, you saw it. Like, I pulled out a Ziploc baggie, and there's this one card that was like if you put it sideways to the baggie and stuck the rest of the deck in on it.
Yeah.
It was completely curled around the rest of the deck. That hurt a little bit.
Well,
but yeah.
Put it under a book and let it sit there for a while and help try to find out.
Yeah, it'll probably be fine. I'm not too worried about it. I looked at the character and he wasn't that strong anyway, but either way, right? I was like, oh man, this could have been better. But that one I had to reread the rules just because I was like, I don't know what the differences are between the video that I saw versus this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, Maui.
Yeah,
I like that game a lot. That is now my second favorite in the if I'm lumping together all the Azules, that is my second favorite of all of the Next Move series.
So you're lumping all the Azules?
Yeah.
So out of all the games, probably that'd be middle of the road for me with all the Next Moves because it's like Reef, all the Azules, Maui. What is the other one? Tukey.
Hey, That's My Fish.
Never played that
Bees.
one. I've seen Bees. Never played it.
Yeah, see, I hadn't played those either.
I always get Bees confused with the Bruno Cathala one that Damn It Don brought over that one time, and I'm like. That Queens, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
That one was better.
It was cool. Although we haven't played Bees.
No, we haven't.
And you played Honey Buzz. So speaking of games, right? That's the only bee themed game I've played with a couple. I played Hive.
I own Honey Buzz. It's up at the very tippity top.
Have you played Hive?
Yes, I have played Hive, but that's not really a bee game though.
It's more a bee game than some of them.
It's an insect game because you have like different insect pieces.
Yeah.
It's fine for an abstract strategy.
You're not wrong. Yeah.
All right,
anyway.
So the next game I'm going to talk about, I don't know if you've played one of these yet. It is an Exit Series game, and because it's spooky season, I wanted to try to get what I've been playing.
I think I know which one you're going to talk about, yeah.
What am I going to talk about?
The jigsaw puzzle ones, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't. I want to so bad. I don't have any more unplayed exits in my collection right now. I was about to play one the other night, and then I ended up getting an unlock instead because I don't have any more exits to play.
So we did play Exit. It's called Exit the Game in Puzzle, Nightfall Manor. And honestly, Other than the ending, which was kind of lackluster, the ending puzzle was fine. But just like the way the story worked, had the ending was kind of like, I've had better endings and stuff like that.
Sure.
But this game was fun. I love putting the puzzle together. I like it that it gives you a little extra time because you do have to put the puzzle together.
Right.
But I love the integration of the puzzle and trying to do certain things for... no spoilers here, but you're trying to do certain things with either something from that they give you in the game, or just even trying to map a puzzle out based on stuff on the puzzle that you have in the game. It is by far one of my favorite escape room style games in the box things because of that. I'm not a huge puzzle guy myself.
I like puzzles, yeah.
That was really fun. It made sense. It's fantastic how they integrate it sometimes because you're just sitting there like, that was clever.
Yeah.
That was very clever what they did for this little puzzle piece or this little to unlock and move into the next facility or whatever the next stage of the puzzles and stuff like that. Is like, that makes a lot of sense, and that was clever what you guys did. Didn't have to use a lot of clues. There were some that didn't make a lot of sense, and it might be sometimes because of the wording for the translation of stuff. So, but yeah, it is a fantastic game. Some of the puzzles were tricky, as I put them down here. I just want to see if I hit all the points I wanted to do. I want to do some of the other puzzle ones. Mind you, we played like the easiest puzzle, and we still struggled at times.
Sure.
But I want to see what some of the other ones do. So, but we went with Nightfall Manor because, you know, spooky season coming up. We wanted to try it. I do have another exit, but it's not one of the puzzle ones. It's the Sherlock Holmes ones.
Okay.
I think it's like you're supposedly helping Sherlock Holmes to escape or something like that.
Oh, interesting.
But I do highly recommend, if you like the exit games, try them with these puzzles. It's quite clever, honestly.
Cool. Yeah, as soon as they announced it, I remember everybody going, yeah, okay, what a gimmick. And I'm like, ooh, that sounds cool.
No. I even said that too, or I didn't think it was going to be a gimmick. I'm like, that's actually a good next step to these kind of things.
Sure.
You're building puzzles and stuff like that.
It's literal puzzling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, literally. There's another company, if you like stuff like that, if you like, I mean, I know you'd like the escape room part of it too, but there's a company called the Magic Jigsaw Puzzle Company, or the Magic Puzzle Company.
Yeah.
That do jigsaw puzzles, but there's always some cool twist at the end where you could do something and you have to like get a story from it. It's kind of weird, yeah. And I've done a few of those, and they're really quite pleasant, even for jigsaw puzzles.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, the last game I wanted to talk about was probably the game you were hinting at, because not only did I play it with our group twice.
It is the game I was hinting at.
I played it with my other group twice because. Okay, so the game itself, even in the rulebook, says once the game's over, you'll probably play it again and again and again.
Not wrong.
Kurt Covert of Smirk and Dagger Games, how dare you be so honest about that? Because, man, he's right. This game is killer. That is the name of the game. And
it's a small box game, too. It's
a small box. It's like $15 or $16, whatever. Has a playmat, 8 little cards, 24 bigger cards. That's it. Okay? All you're doing on your turn is you are dealt 2 cards each. This is a party game that's kind of like a horror theme. It looks at first like a hidden roll or deduction game. It's not. It's none of those. It's a party game where you get 2 cards. On the bottom of every card has a location. On the top has an action that you do. And they're all very extreme actions. You choose 1 to play as the action, 1 to play as the location, and on your turn you have to choose one of them. Your second card gets played opposite. And you have to play them in a snake. And the way that works is that starting with the first player, plays in normal clockwise order. When it gets to the last player, they play their second card, and it goes in reverse.
Yep.
So you're going to see some actions where sometimes they'll be like, oh, well, like Daniel went to the airlock. Well, it just so happens I'm going to blow that up. Sorry. It is what it is. I'm trying to kill the alien, I swear.
Yeah.
But, you continue going on. And there's games where it'll eliminate other people. There's cards that will let you manipulate actions or peek at the card that's going to be played. There's cards that do just all sorts of shenanigans, like where it lowers or increases other people's priority. because what happens is after everybody's played their second card, that just tells you what location and what action you're going to do. But then you flip over and reveal which room the alien is in, which they're going to eat one person in that room. If there's more than one person in that room, it's whoever has the highest priority. And so there was one card that my friend Clint played that when he played it, it was literally like, if you don't die at the end of this round, you escape from a pod, and you win. And win was in quotation marks, right? It was the coward card. And it was so good because he was like, so I won. I'm like, yeah, but we continue playing, right? Yeah. That's what the card says. And so we kept playing, and it took us a lot longer. And just every once in a while, I was like, man, I barely survived that. Coward. We just kept doing that. And I don't know if that was fun for him or not, but man, it was funny because...
Well, I like the fact that when we played it, like, the first round we won. Yeah, I literally played the card, and it's like... If that is the airlock, I blow the airlock. If the alien is in there, it's done, and all the survivors left die. And it just so happened because I think
we all survived.
Damn it, Dom was the first player, or was it you? And you picked the card that was the airlock, which blew it out, and we were both. Everybody was just like, "Let's play this again."
Yeah, and then we all lost. Right, the second one.
Well, that was even funnier because we blew everybody up. Me and Damn It Dom were in the same room, and you killed us, but you were in the room with the alien, and we blew it up.
Yeah, and so 32 cards, right? Yeah. Technically, and a player mat. That's all this game is. Yet we're still telling stories about, like, as if we were there. This, I watched a review of it right before we played, and the reviewer said... Quite literally, it's like, this game knows what it is, and it is not trying to be anything different.
And it's unapologetic
about it. It's like, we know exactly what we're doing. And with a bold title like This Game is Killer, that is... You can't just name a game, like, with no reason about that. But that game definitely lives up to that. And I couldn't be more happy that Smirk and Dagger came out with it. So, This Game is Killer, awesome game. Alright, so let's get into today's episode. We have a top 8 debate for horror movie games.
And a new cup of doom, just for the Halloween stuff.
Yeah, I gotta give you props. Like, viewers who are watching this on the video format or live get to see how nicely you decorated this. We got props up. Like, I mean, we're getting professional here.
Yeah, all the horror board games are in the background.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much all the ones I have.
Yeah. I suppose I could bring a couple, but I'm not. That's too much.
You got some like Marvel down there, but since it's at the bottom, and I don't mess with my stuff on failed shelf.
Yeah, no.
You can bring In the Year of the Dragon. We'll put it there because that's a scary game.
Yes, it is pretty scary. It's definitely daunting. Well, let's talk about which games we'll be debating today.
Sounds good.
All right, so we have our top 8 highest ranked games from Board Game Geek that Daniel and I have both played. We'll get into that, and then we'll talk about our honorable mentions. First, we have our number 1 seed, Final Girl.
Going up against our number 8 seed, Halloween.
Ooh. Number 2 seed, Legendary Encounters, Alien.
It's called Alien, the deck building game. Get it right? Yeah, but,
all right, well, actually, carry on.
Going up against our number 7 seed, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Slaughterhouse.
Then we have our number 3 seed, Horrified.
Going up against our number 6 seed, Night of the Living Dead, a zombie-side game.
Then we have our number 4 seed, Nightmare Productions.
Going up against our number 5 seed, Alien, Fate of Nostromo.
All right. So, of course, consider which ones you would be debating for. We'll be talking about those here in a bit. Let's talk about our honorable mentions going into this.
Do you want to do the people's honorable mentions?
Let's do the people's honorable mentions first. Go ahead and load that up.
All right, doing that right now.
Which, by the way, we post this on the Board Game Revolution group on Facebook, and we let people, our viewers, vote for their favorites. And by all means, go rep your favorite games. If you liked any of those, you should be on that group voting for your favorites. Also, there's a spot down below where you can comment and add in other ones that are your favorites that either should be on this list and aren't for whatever reason, like whether one of us haven't played it or just weren't on the Board Game Geek list.
Yeah, and we'll get into that here in a little bit.
Yep.
All right, so the first honorable mention that had here added here was by Ryan, and it is Fearsome Floors.
You know, I should have put that as one of my honorable mentions. Yes, I agree, Ryan. Like, because Fearsome Floors, the way the Frankenstein moves on that is just so darn funny. and it messes people over so badly. And it's such a weird AI system that moves it around, and it's just one of the funniest things in the world. I couldn't agree more on that. Then Juan added in Last Night on Earth.
Yeah, I get it, but it is not really based on any movie. It's just a strictly B-movie, zombie movie style thing. But it is
Same
based
as Final Girl.
Yeah,
right?
but I was going to say, it's based on some of the other stuff that we've had on this list. It would fit, not in the category.
Yeah, like Last Friday, I feel should have been in this too.
We'll get to that here in a minute. Next up on the list was added by Tim, and this is Nemesis. This is one of those legally distinct games. Alien, we're going to be talking about one of the versions, or two of the versions of Aliens later.
Yep.
But yeah, Nemesis should be on this list. It is a fantastic game that just didn't have the Alien license on it, and I have an inkling. I haven't heard anything. I just have a feeling that eventually Awakened Realms might get the Alien license just to put in there. Think like how we got Zombicide Night of the Living Dead series.
Ooh, that'd be pretty cool. Kevin added The Thing, Infection at Outpost 31.
I've been wanting to try a Thing game. There's two. There's that one, and there was another one.
The white box went over really well.
Yeah.
One of our regulars really adored that game, and he said it felt just like it. Is one of the cool things about it is, like, I know you could become, like, infected, right? And now, granted, I haven't seen the movie, so forgive me if I'm making some references I don't know. I know, I need to. I know. I've only ever seen parts, but
I haven't seen it in a while. It's not one of my favorites, but it's still a good film.
But I remember, like, you have cards, and you have some infection cards in your blood, right?
Yeah.
And you mix that in. But when you kill somebody, you give them a random card from your blood, which may possibly infect them, which is pretty darn awesome. Like, that's a cool mechanism.
That's very thematic to the actual movie and stuff like that. All right, so the next one here was added by Mo, and this is Alien, Another Glorious Day in the Cores, which I believe is a miniatures game, like a tabletop miniatures game.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Yeah, I've not heard of that one. And then another one added by Jim, one of our mutual buddies, added last Friday, as I brought up earlier.
And he did make a reference point on it here, so there you go. You can read that.
Yeah. Jim, my buddy, said, I added last Friday mainly because I remember having fun playing it, but particularly since it emulates that feel of uncertainty one gets from slasher films. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Because of the state, it's a hidden movement game that we'll be talking about, like another one here in a bit.
There's quite a few in
but
here.
it's based off of, like, Jason.
There's only one in here, huh?
There's only one hidden movement, yes.
Oh, yeah. But no, I have not played it, so I can't really make a reference point on there.
Yeah.
But
Well,
let's go into our honorable mentions. You want to flip the coin?
Absolutely. Here we go.
And it was starting with me. So my first game on my list is my gripe that it should have been on the list because it is based off a horror movie. It is a hidden movement game. Now, you can make the distinction that it's not technically a horror film. It's more maybe a thriller, stuff like that. But I growing up, I thought it was a scary movie. And it still gives me my deep-seated fear of, like, the deep ocean. And this is Jaws. It is a hidden movement game.
This is 100% a horror movie.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Anybody who says otherwise is, like, if you say this isn't a horror movie, then why are you including aliens in, right?
Exactly.
Like, no, this is more horror than almost any of the movies.
If you include the first Alien movie, that is a horror film.
Sure, yeah.
All the others are action films.
Yeah, I get that. But I'm just saying, Jaws, like, that one has such a good sense of just feeling uncomfortable, the whole movie. It's one of my favorite horror movies.
In the music, too, is what helped out a lot. And it really got you into that, oh my god, that tension and feel and stuff like that.
It doesn't need to be dark and, like, slow movements to be a horror movie. And that proved it.
And then, so, you actually get a lot of that feel in this game. It's a game based on two parts. One person is playing the shark, trying to eat a certain amount of beachgoers, I think is what they're called.
Yeah, I think so.
And while the rest of the team is playing the different characters, the sheriff, the guy who has the boat, and I guess the geologist or the marine biologist, something like that. You're trying to warn people off the beach. You're trying to hunt down the shark. You're throwing buoys to try to get the sensor. The shark has a little bit of powers. The characters have a little bit of powers. But all this is leading up to the second part of the game where you're fighting the shark. And so, depending on how many people that the shark ate, he gets more cards and powers for the next phase of the thing. Depending on how many people the humans have saved, they get more abilities, more weapons, and stuff like that to fight off the shark. And whoever is the last man standing in the second phase of the game, because it's basically a head-to-head battle, you're playing out cards and you're trying to destroy the humans if you're playing the shark side, or the humans are trying to kill the shark. And the thing about this game, and what I say, it's probably one of the most thematic hidden movement games I've ever played.
Yep.
Because the fact that it plays in two parts almost feels like it plays well like the movie. So when you're in the hidden movement part, that plays fantastically for the shark. But when you're going into the head-and-head battle where the shark's trying to destroy the humans, you have a better shot of winning the game outright if you're playing on the human side, even if the shark really got really powerful. In fact, the couple times that I have played the one time I played as the shark, I ate 20 humans. I ate the maximum amount, and I still lost the game in the second level because it weighs itself very well, and it feels thematic to the movie. And so Jaws was my first honorable mention.
Unless you play against our friend Jim, who was the shark and was the most unrelenting, massive 1v all, just complete decimation horror show. I know you can't lose in the first half of the game. We still lost in the first half of the game because of just how brutal it was. He basically went chomp on the second half and our boat was gone. It was ridiculous. My first honorable mention, speaking of Prospero Hall designs, I have a Prospero Hall design as mine, and you have it right up here behind your head. This is Scream the Game. So what this
I own it, still haven't played it.
Yeah, this is like a party game. The way it works is quite simple. You're trying to all collectively survive. It's a real-time party-style game where you have an app that simulates the phone calls you're getting from Ghostface. And so there's certain times where the phone will ring and you have to stop what you're doing, answer the phone, and he'll give you a message of what's happening. And there's certain times where he's about to kill people in certain locations. There's times where you're trying to get certain things to throw him off the threat. And you have to get certain items away, but you also need to get those items to the right locations in order to win the game. You have to get certain ones, it's kind of like a fast-paced gin rummy, I guess, in a way. But yeah, I mean, just the fact that you're literally answering phones from your phone call, and it pops up like it's a cell phone call. Ghostface is calling you. Why would he be in my contacts, But it's not quite that bad.
I get it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've always appreciated that tense feeling of as it's building in the theme, as you're going into that. You talked briefly how cool it'd be to have that that is a hidden deduction style game.
Well, deduction, yeah.
Yeah, I mean this very much works in its favor, and unfortunately, so this one came out just right before Funko sold a lot of their
Goliath, yeah.
Yeah, Funko Games sold to Goliath, so it didn't really get the buzz I think it should have. But, man, does it work. I'm going to be playing that all season. In fact, I need to get my gamut of games ready to play throughout all of the Halloween season, because that's what we're going to be playing.
All of them are facing the front for me.
Yep, you're ready to go on those. That's right. But, yeah, Scream, the game, had to be one of my honorable mentions.
All right, my second honorable mention, you can see it right up here. That is a fantastic game. If you notice the little white sticker on it, I was able to win this in an auction-style thing that we did over at the local game store here. I never played it before. I won it, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to try it out, because I am a huge fan of Stephen King's It, the book. Be forewarned, there is some stuff in there that you can do without. But I also really like the new movies that came out. I originally liked the movie with Tim Curry as Pennywise the Clown. I thought, or the miniseries.
Well, Tim Curry is really good in anything he does.
He's just a fantastic actor. But there was a lot of all this stuff going on. I really did enjoy it, and I won this game, and I'm like, I've been wanting to try it. But this game was so hard to find. It was $200 on eBay, and I'm like, it's a not no knock to Op. They're fantastic game designers. They're not worth $200. I'm sorry.
No game should be.
And so I played this one, and I thought, wow, this is really neat. It can be a little simple. And it's very lucky because you got to deal with a lot of dice rolls. You're trying to match symbols, and you're trying to do so much that you can defeat Pennywise and send him back into hibernation. This is the first part of the It series where you're playing as the children and you're working around Derry, trying to accrue stuff, find enough of the Pennywise stuff while he's trying to grow your fear as you're going along around. And so you're doing all this stuff. I like there's like an ability where you can use the bike if you have the bike, and you can go a couple spaces, and you can, rather than just one space when you're moving. And you're just rolling dice for dice checking purposes and stuff like that. And he gets a certain amount of balloons. It's been a while since I played it. He gets a certain amount of balloons, and if he gets those certain amount of balloons, you lose the game. If our terror levels or our one person's fear level gets too high, the Pennywise AI wins the game. Fantastic game, really comes through. Op did really good on this one, and that's why I like some of the Op games too, because when they do their IPs and they do them right, they do them well, and this is one of them. So my second pick is It Evil Below is the proper name.
Cool. Next one I want to talk about is a game that you've been wanting to play this. We have not gotten a chance to. We're going to be debating another version of it. At the same time, this is Texas Chainsaw Massacre by Trick or Treat Studios.
This one looks really good.
Yeah, it does. And so here's the thing, right? I've spoken with some of the owners of Trick or Treat Studios, or at least some of the main developers of the game.
Yeah.
And when they were teasing it and when they were running the Kickstarter and all that stuff, Funko Games announced their Texas Chainsaw Massacre at almost at the same time. And they were understandably perturbed because they had the license to make a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. How did somebody else get the license? And now I know IPs are a little more frivolous now.
Well,
but
the thing about it too is with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's so many movies that you can base it off of in that genre where they always use Leatherface at one point or another.
Yeah, exactly. So you could do it off of a different movie. But what this is quite simple. You are the people trying to survive against Leatherface. All you have to do is find a certain number of items like gas and you have to find, I think, 3 gas for a 4-player game. Basically one fewer, and then a set of keys. You have to go around the property searching for it. But the biggest difference, and we're going to be talking about the other Texas Chainsaw Massacre Slaughterhouse here in a bit, but I want to talk about the differences between them, is that this is like a bag building, communal bag building. Mm-hmm. And so as you're revealing these tokens from it, you're throwing these tokens into the bag.
With a little push your luck, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, there is some press your luck, and which is always great in a co-op game. Press your luck is fantastic in a co-op game.
Yeah, it is.
And so you're pulling into this absolutely grotesque bag. That's what it's called, the grotesque bag. And it looks like skin stitched together. It's disgusting, and it's so beautiful. And the inside is red velvet. It's just, oh man. It's or silky, it's such good component on that.
And then, I'm a fan of Trick or Treat Studio in general.
They do. They made a really great production. And you're pulling out these tokens from it, and as you're pulling them out, some are action tokens where you can take actions on your turn. You get 2 free movements, hopefully, and then you pull out tokens. But if you draw some of the family tokens, then that means that some of the Slaughterhouse family are going to be populating the board. If you are pulling out Leatherface tokens, then that activates him. Mm-hmm. And if you pull out too many Leatherface tokens, not only does your turn end, it permanently makes him stronger, which is pretty hilarious. So this starts with Leatherface on the board, chasing everybody around as you're running around the property. Yeah. Whereas the other game, Leatherface doesn't show up till way later. Way later, yeah. Which is kind of interesting. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I really like both of them. I think they are different enough where you could both have it. But the component choices, I like the other components better, Slaughterhouse, but I want to talk about specifically that grotesque bag. Beautiful. Absolutely awesome. And the turn order piece is a barbecue container. So as you're passing that around, that's where you put your used tokens. Mm-hmm. Then you can just dump them right into the bag, pass both along. Oh, that's so good.
What I've seen about the grotesque bag, which is kind of neat too, it's kind of stitched like human skin, like Leatherface's mask and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, that really feels thematic.
Yeah, it's great. And it's big enough, and it's also it's made like a cylinder, so it actually stands up on its own pretty well, and it's pretty thick too. It's like a pleathery kind of feel. It's really good. So that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If you like that movie, then this is a shoo-in. You should get the game for sure.
And what's funny, we talk about a lot of things where we have, you just talked about a Prospero Hall not too long ago, the Scream game.
Yep.
I'm going to be, we got a Prospero Hall on our list here as well.
Yep.
So I'm going to be talking my last one, a Prospero Hall game. I really did enjoy this one a lot. I don't own it anymore just because it didn't get played a lot. And it's one of those things, like, if the game's not getting played, I can't have it anymore. Yep. But it's also based on Stephen King. It's also based on an IP from this gentleman, one of my favorite authors, because, again, I love horror theme. Mm-hmm. So I read a lot of the scary books, and this is the season I tend to watch or read a lot of Stephen King books. And this one is The Shining. I really do enjoy this one. I love the push your luck aspect on this one too. And this is it's been a while since I played it. I don't remember. It's not one versus many. You're all
cooperative.
Yeah, it's all cooperative.
Yep.
You're trying to survive the overlook hotel.
Yep.
And everything that is throwing at you. You have like these different tokens, kind of all the Trick or Treat Studio Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where sometimes they're okay and sometimes they're not, and you're looking for certain items as you're going through the overlook. This is another one that really screams out the theme, and Prospero Hall has been known to do really well, bringing out the theme of what they're working with. And we've talked to former members of Prospero Hall, NPC Aaron, who shows up in the thing. They're fans of horror movies, and so they really showcase the horror aspect of a lot of these ones. Now, be forewarned, the Shining board game is rated for an adult audience because there is some grotesque stuff in the board game itself by some of the artwork and stuff like that. So be forewarned on it. But if you haven't played this and you're into horror, give this a try. It is a fantastic game. I know I didn't describe it too well, but it's been about 4 years since I played it.
So my number one is The Shining as well. And,
there you go.
And that's because, you're right. Like, down to the components, like, the board is, while it's a very functionally simple board, and while, like, you're trying to get, like, certain weapon tokens and certain different devices that you could use to eventually, kill off Jack or just survive long enough.
Yeah.
Like, even down to, like, the player marker, the first player marker, which is the room key for 237, right?
Yeah.
It's a keychain for that. Like, all of the pieces are just awesome. It works really well. It's a fairly inexpensive game, and it just works. Like, I mean, it's Prospero Hall, man. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. So, The Shining, I don't get played enough either, but I do quite like it, and I like to play it whenever I get a chance.
Yeah, no, it is fantastic. It's just one of those things that didn't get played enough, and my wife's not a huge fan of The Shining. I've shown her the movie, and she refuses to read the book, so...
Sure.
She found
I like the movie a lot.
The movie's fantastic, and in fact, it's one of the few times I like the movie over the book.
Yeah.
And that's because of some of the stuff that Stanley Kubrick changed.
Sure.
There are some things I don't agree with that he changed in there. One of them being the weapon of choice against one of the characters in that movie.
Sure.
Because it gave that character finality in the movie, and that character didn't have finality in the book, and and I really like that character. So, and I'll explain to you outside of this thing.
I know which one you're talking about. Yeah. We discussed this a few weeks ago.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy the movie more. So, hindsight being what it is, the stuff that they put in on that poor woman was just horrific. That is you don't do stuff like that. I know it was a different time and frame, but putting that kind of undue stress on someone, I'm not a fan of that.
Yep. No, I don't blame you. Cool. All right, so let's get into today's debate. Again, we have the top 8 highest ranked games on Board Game Geek that are based off of movies, horror movies specifically, and the highest, well, it's not all just the highest, it's the highest ranked that Daniel and I have both played. There is a few that snuck in there that either both of us or one of us have not played, which we would have talked about in our honorable mentions probably if we did. Yeah. But we're going to debate these one by one, and we have now our gamer criteria. This is how we break those down. First off, let's see. Let's actually flip to see who talks about what.
Okay.
You know what? I'll go into it. G, game immersion.
A is art and production.
Then we have M, which is meaningful choice.
E is ease of play.
And R is replay value.
And so we'll break it down as we're going through throughout the thing. If you can go listen to our past podcasts and hear everything, as well as if you're listening to this on the podcast format or on YouTube, there will be a link to our Google Docs of the G.A.M.E.R criteria.
That's right. Cool. So we'll break it down a little bit more here in a bit. As always, I will be flipping the coin of doom, and Daniel will be pulling from the cup of doom. So we'll be debating either side, whichever one we start. Right now, we're going to start with Final Girl versus Halloween. You ready?
I'm ready.
Here we go.
Starting with you, and you get Halloween.
All right. So this one we played fairly recently, and it was for specifically this podcast.
Yep.
This is a hidden movement by Emerson Matsuuchi.
Okay,
and
let me clarify. Wasn't specifically for this podcast. I needed to get it off my pile of shame, but it just gave me a reason
good
to...
excuse.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
Sure. It was specifically for this podcast. I mean, let's be real. Like that was 2 of the 3 reasons. Pretty much.
Pretty much.
But no, this is a hidden movement game based on One versus Many games based on the Halloween movie.
Yep.
And this is from Trick or Treat Studios, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And so one player is playing as
Michael Myers.
Michael Myers. Yep. Sorry. Thank you. And everybody else is just pretty much the villagers. You have to go through the 4 houses. You have to try and find either the keys for the one vehicle or the other vehicle, and then find the 2 kids. Mm-hmm. So each of those 4 key items are hidden in each of the decks, and they're mixed up, and they're normally near the bottom. I think the last 4 cards or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's the last 4 cards, and then there's 4 keys, or 2 keys and 2 kids, and there's 4 search deck, and so each one of those is going to be all search deck is going to have 1 key item.
Cool. And so once you find a key item in one deck, you can pass it along and go to a different one. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you're just moving around the board trying to search for the items while trying to stave off Michael Myers and keep him from being too much of a problem. Now, one of the things that I like about this is Halloween the movie. What I like so much about the movie is there is those scenes where the characters will be moving along their day-to-day life and stuff, and then they do something and they just move off the screen, and Michael Myers is just standing there. And it's just so ominous, right? And he's not making a move, he's just standing there and watching.
Yep.
And I feel like that really comes out thematically, like when it's like, all right, I'll move to this spot, and then we all look at you because you were Michael Myers. You're like, okay. And then so we carry on with our day, and then we move to another spot, and then suddenly you pop up down the distance, and we're like... and you just... and it's just
or
like,
you just randomly see footprints just pop into your view.
It's like, oh, something moved over there. Okay.
And it also did help that we had the Halloween soundtrack playing in the background.
Oh, yeah, of course. You gotta, right? And then just like the way the Michael Myers character moves around, ours is pretty straightforward on how we move, you know? But one of the best parts about it is that...
The victims, by the way, is what they're called.
Victims, sorry. Yeah, not villagers. That's a different game, though. We'll be talking about it here in a few rounds. The victims, though... One of the coolest things is just like in the movie, like if you're right next to the player, you could be like, hey, it's like we can share items and that's in secret, like, hey, shake my hand, here's an item. But if we're anywhere else, we could say whatever we want. We could give each other information as much as we want, but he's always listening. Mm-hmm. And so we just have to be able to say it out loud. That's the rule. Simple. It's like, oh, well, hey guys, we're good in this house. That's all. You
don't have to search here anymore. We're fine.
Yeah, we're good. We
should move on.
I'm going to move on.
That kind of thing.
For reason.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and you'd sit there, okay.
Yeah, no.
You know? I liked it a lot. I thought it was funny. And then part of it, like, I mean, you knew when we had all of the key items, right?
Yeah.
Because we pretty much had to say it. But then when we maneuvered to each other, and it's like, all right, we'll trade you some items, I know there was a moment of unsureness in there. Mm-hmm. So it brings out the theme pretty well. While I have some problems with some of the mechanisms and how simple it is, I feel like it's a solid game just because of that level of theme that it brings out. It's one of the more thematic on our list for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only reason it's ranked so low is honestly just because it's so new.
Yeah. So, it came out 2023 around Halloween that year, and honestly, people are really not going to play a Halloween game until it's close to Halloween. Right. So that kind of thing is what happened here. I do really enjoy it. Mm-hmm. That was fantastic. But also going up against probably by far one of my favorite games on this list. This is ridiculous. As you can see, I have the big box just right around his shoulder over there. This is Final Girl. By far one of the best solo games that's ever been made.
Yeah.
And by far one of the best thematic solo games that have ever been made.
No kidding.
It is slightly a re-implementation and reworking of a game called Hostage Negotiator. Mm-hmm. But the whole concept of this is you're playing the final girl. If you've ever watched any slasher film, it's always the one girl that survives and defeats the big bad. That's what you're doing. You're playing an iteration of the final girl, and you're going up against a big bad. You're playing cards out of your hand. Depending on how much cards you want to use, it's going to be how much time is going to be used, depending on the type of card you are using. There is ways of mitigating it, and you're always rolling dice for dice checking, and there's ways to mitigate that as well.
Yep.
And you just play that out until either you survive or the final kill happens, and then you actually lose to the boss. This is by far one of my favorite games of all time. It's one of the few games that I rate as high as it is. Mm-hmm. Because it is that fun. Though I do thoroughly enjoy Halloween. And the big bonus for Final Girl, it's got 2 volumes as of right now. The 3rd volume should be coming out soon. And it's mix and match. As long as you have one core box, you can get any of the expansions you want and play it as many times as you want. It's based on horror movies, legally distinct from. So you have like it's called The Fright of Maple Lane or something like that. So Nightmare on Elm Street, which is by far still one of my favorite ones to play because I love that little puzzle aspect of when you're fighting the Doctor of Maple Lane or whatever his name is, Dr. Frightmare. That's fantastic. There's like a evil puppeteer on one of the things. There's a legally distinct alien. I think it's called Evomorph. And what's cool about it is if you get some of these big boxes, there's a thing where you can bridge it all and make it feel like you're playing a horror film and you're playing a Final Girl. Every Final Girl plays differently, and again, you can mix and match. So I can take the Final Girl that fights against Hans and play it against Dr. Frightmare or the Evomorph. So there is a lot to this game. It is the one I think that should move on. As much as I like Halloween, just because there's just a lot of meaningful choice in this one. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of... The art and production are great in both of these games.
Yeah.
The game immersion, you really feel the tension in Final Girl because, oh god, that dice didn't roll the way I needed it to. Let me mitigate it, but now my hand's slower, and so you feel that tension on that aspect, where you feel the tension a lot in Halloween, too. So both of them do really well on game immersion. Both of them are really good on ease of play, but I think Final Girl should move on. Let's hear what you got to say on that.
I don't disagree with you. There's only one of our gamer criteria that I think even comes close to matching Final Girl, and that's ease of play.
Yeah.
Like that, Halloween is much easier to play. Final Girl, it's
both are very immersive.
Yeah, they're incredibly immersive. But Final Girl really not only brings out that same theme with that one character, which I'm forgetting, like with that one boss. That's basically the Michael Myers ripoff. What is that one? Or is that Jason?
That's Jason, the one Jason. Hans.
Yeah, Hans. I mean, but even then, like, it has pretty much every horror movie style in it. And the fact that it's able to do that so modularly, it's massive. So I think Final Girl moves on as well.
I agree with you.
All right. So that means that we're going to be going into our next round, where we have our number 2 seed, Legendary Encounters, versus our number 7 seed, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Slaughterhouse.
Legendary Encounters, Alien, the deck building game. Get it right.
You begin. I hope you get that one, so that way you can say the whole title.
I do got Legendary Encounters, an Alien deck building game.
Cool.
So, okay, this is going to sound weird.
Yeah, it does.
I like both of these games. I think they're fantastic. Both are very thematic. if this game was going up against Alien Fate of Nostromo, I think this is the one that would move on because it is thoroughly the better Alien game.
Yeah.
As much as we'll get into the Alien Fate of Nostromo when we get into the Alien Fate of Nostromo, but this one gives you that tension of aliens, and the reason why I like it, this was the first legendary game encounter system, which was different from the legendary system from the Marvel version, where it's a deck building game. You play your cards out and you buy stuff, you fight fight villains.
Yep.
This one, they come in a row quietly, slowly, and you have to spend your resources to flip over and see what it is to bring it down to fight it until it comes down into the combat zone, I guess is what you would call it. You can't fight the alien, the xenomorph is what they're called.
Yeah.
As someone who has just recently started watching all the Alien movies again, as I was mentioning, because we're getting ready to go see Romulus, this one gives you that tension you get in that first Alien movie as it's coming around. And what I like about it, too, it plays all 4 movies in the base box. So you set it up for the 4 movies. You have to meet certain criteria to win while you're still trying to survive, too. But what I like about this, too, is that it plays each of the movie thematically. So the very first one, you're feeling that tension. You're having to fight this thing that's happening. But if you go into the second movie, which is Aliens, that's more action-oriented. You have more stuff to fight against the aliens that are coming up. But that one also has one of the queens or something like that. So they're a little bit more powerful. So it gives you that thematic. I don't even want to talk about the other 2 movies. They're fine. They're there. Whatever. It does have one expansion, too. So, which is kind of impressive because I didn't think there was going to be like a whole expansion for this but what else is neat is that it integrates with the Predator encounters, which is awesome. Really cool. Yeah. And so you can have Alien versus Predator. However, you're playing the Predators, you're not playing as the aliens. Which, mind you, is still kind of cool because the Predators do hunt the aliens. It's a fantastic system. I like the game. But I don't know if it should move on. It's at its core, it's just a straight up deck building game, so it's very mechanistic where you do feel and ooze the theme of Slaughterhouse. But let's hear what your thoughts on Slaughterhouse is.
So Texas Chainsaw Massacre Slaughterhouse, right before this and the other movie the other game came out, I specifically went out of my way to watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, the original one, just because I wanted to see it.
The one from the 70s, right?
Yeah, the one from the 70s, the original. And I was curious because I'm like, well, I'm 2 games coming out at once. I've heard good things about it. You know, let's see what it was about. And the movie was fine. Like I didn't mind it. As far as old school horror movie does,
and the thing
it does a decent job.
It's horror, but it's also like the exploitation style of films as well.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not a big fan of that style.
Sure. Yeah, but like I get that, but at the same time, like I also saw Hills Have Eyes too around the same time, and I was like, that movie's awful. I get it.
Did you watch the new Hills Have Eyes or
the old one?
That's even worse. The new one was bad, but
yep. But anyway, so yeah, despite the movie not being all that amazing, right?
Yeah.
The game, I think, is probably the best thing from that IP, and specifically this one. Now, I brought up Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the board game from Trick or Treat Studios in my original one.
Yeah.
I'm never quite certain which one of the 2 that I prefer, but I definitely very much like this one. And this does a few things that I think are just awesome. It has a lot of tension because you're slowly building up the family members. It starts with just the old man, and then eventually Grandpa comes in, the hitchhiker comes in, and then Leatherface comes in, like throughout the game. And there's these moments of tension because they all work in different ways. But effectively, you're just trying to get to the point where you find the items, kind of like how we said earlier, and escape. But that's just the first of 5 scenarios. That's the base scenario, the one that they recommend you play.
Yeah.
There's 5 scenarios that work in different ways. So there's huge replayability as far as just the base game alone. But the production is actually really nice. The weird leather or the skin dice are like bones, but they have like slashes to them.
Well, those are not skin; they're vertebrae.
Vertebrae, yeah. I mean, God, those are disgusting.
But they're cool.
And even like as far as setup goes, it's already like super thematic. When you pull 4 of those, I forget what they're called, but they're like event tiles, and you pull 4 of those at random, and you put them just in any room you want. Whoever's Leatherface. Now this is 1 versus many. So again, you were the one who was playing, the Slaughter family.
I didn't want to be the Slaughter family, but it was still fun to do.
Yeah, it was still fun. And what made this game so great is, like any good game, like any good horror movie, you want it to come right down to the wire. You don't want it to be resolved super fast. You want it to be building up tension throughout the whole game. Every move just seems like it's getting worse and worse and worse, but somehow you barely cling on to victory. No, we didn't. We lost. But
no, you guys won.
Did we?
I lost, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, then, I mean, it was
I had it set up
right
for me
though.
to win, but my issue with this game, this is my only real big issue with this, and it might be what can hold it back, is because it lends to arbitrary choices. Because in AP they both hit at the same time, and the reason being is because of the deck of cards. I have to give you guys each 4 injuries. When I'm trying to cycle through that deck to find that one injury that you guys need, that becomes a problem, because if I got them at the very beginning of the game and they're put to the bottom of the deck, it's going to take me a while, and I have to keep attacking and keep attacking and keep attacking.
Right.
So
but
that's,
I also feel like and don't get me wrong, I don't mean to say this like I'm disagreeing with you, because I get that, but I feel like that very much lends itself to the theme of the game.
At least
right?
to the thematic.
That builds up the immersion.
Yes and no, because it's lucky. It's luck based.
But a lot of the survivors in this horror film, they're only surviving because they're lucky.
There was a survivor.
Yeah, a survivor. But I'm saying, like that feels like the only reason some of these people have survived in just the whole slew of horror horror movies is because
of luck.
Like,
yeah.
man, you just got really lucky.
But here's the thing: that's a movie.
Yeah.
This is a board game, and the one thing about it is, a lot of people don't like luck in a board game, especially something that could be that lucky. Because all I needed to get on you was like a foot injury on you, and then I needed to get like an arm injury on Damn It Dom.
Yeah.
But all I was drawing was head injuries.
Right.
Which you already had head injuries, so
no, I know it takes away from the meaningful choice. I give you that, but man,
that's my
every terrible roll or every bad situation that we got put in just added to how much more I enjoyed the game.
What I liked about it, though, is when you guys were like, you son of because what I ended up doing is, because I had Grandpa in, like, where you guys needed to be, I just sat him right there, and he instantly stops your movement and attacks you. So, you're just all sitting there like, should we just go to the other vehicle? But we have the gas and all the components for this vehicle.
Yep. Yeah, there's just so much to it.
It leads a lot to it too. Yeah. But I'm saying, like, the arbitrary choices can detract for somebody.
Right.
And it's kind of like a hidden movement game, such as or a hidden betrayer game, such as like Shadows over Camelot.
Yeah.
If people are trying to do something, and it's like that, it's not in the spirit of the game. You know what I mean? And so the arbitrary choices sometimes could be not in the spirit of the game. Because it's already bad enough, I got to roll dice, and that's enough luck right there to make successful hits.
Yeah.
And then I'm successful, I have to draw cards for a certain part of the thing, and so it can take people out of it. In the AP, there was a lot of AP in this one. There was times where I could walk away from the table, go use the restroom, make me another cup of coffee before I could even do anything.
Sure, I give you that. I feel like this luck is like, I feel like this is one of the few genres of board games where luck is kind of okay.
Well, I don't disagree with
I mean?
you, but
like,
we have to think about it on the board gaming side of things.
So then let's break it down then.
No, I agree with you. Texas Chainsaw Massacre should move on. I'm just saying that is the one flaw with this game.
Right. That's your biggest counterpoint to it.
Yes.
Gotcha. Fair enough. That's very fair. But yeah, on all of the other points, though, I do think it should move on. Just because
I mean, there's a lot of luck base out of Legends.
Sure, yeah. Deck builders are always random.
Well, not just that, because of the way the things are coming in face down.
Yep, that's another level. Cool. So, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Slaughterhouse moves on.
We have to confirm Slaughterhouse, because there were 2 Texas Chainsaw Massacres that came out at the same time.
Yep, that's right. Now we're going to go on to our next round. Horrified versus Night of the Living Dead Zombicide. and I'll be starting us off this round.
All right, you are getting Night of the Living Dead Zombicide.
Okay, so Night of the Living Dead. Thankfully, we played this recently, so it's
yeah.
It's easier for me to remember. Night of the Living Dead Zombicide. It plays off of the Zombicide system, so if you're familiar with that, it's fairly easy to play it. What was great is that you were playing the movie in the background, which I realized I had never seen before.
The original movie,
that was really pleasant. I like that a lot.
Because you've seen all the more recent ones.
I've seen
you
a lot
thought
of
it was the mall
ones.
movie.
I thought it was, yeah, and I forgot that was like Night of the Living Dead, or
that is Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead, something like that. Yeah, so I just hadn't seen.
Or Dawn of the Living Dead, one of the two.
Yeah, it's exactly, exactly. There's my problem, right? No, but so
I
this
think
movie.
That is Dawn of the Dead is the one in the mall.
Oh, okay, cool. I mean that I'd rewatch that one. That one was pretty alright.
No, I like that one too.
Yeah. But as far as this game goes, so it's based off of Zombicide. You're going to be
very luck based too.
Very luck based, yeah. You're going to be moving around the house. You're basically trying to find scraps of wood, trying to board up the walls. And the scenario that we played, which was a pretty easy scenario, and albeit
no, that's what it tells you to do.
Right, it was the introduction. I'm sure it builds on more than that. But all we were trying to do is just find scraps of wood, nail them up against the wall, and continue and make sure that there's no zombies inside of the house. That was really all it needed to be. Hey, Creative Cast. And I know that that since there is more to it, we didn't get the full theming of it. But overall, I love the components. The components are really nice on it, especially the Zombicide boards. Like I've experienced
those have always
before.
been really nice.
Those have always been good, and they're the little torch, the little legs,
the table legs,
yeah, as the torch. So that was pretty awesome.
Or it can be a torch.
There can be a torch, sure, yeah. And there's ways to upgrade weapons, or if you have a certain thing in your backpack or whatever, you can upgrade your weapons. But essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to maneuver around, search different areas for different items, specifically scrap, but you also needed a few other things that just to board up the wall. That's really it.
Yeah.
And the other scenarios I'm sure would add more to it. We only played the one scenario, so just to get off the shelf. Overall,
for this one as well.
Yeah, overall, I get why they made it. I've never been a big fan of the Zombicide series, personally, just because I feel like it is super lucky. And, it's lucky enough, comparatively to, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I know we just talked about it, and they're not going against each other. But comparatively, there's something about the luck in there that felt thematic. I didn't feel the luck in mine felt thematic because there was a lot of times in Zombicide Night of the Living Dead where I just felt that we were okay, yeah, there's just nothing for us to do. And that's never a good feeling in a cooperative game where it's I guess I can move to that room, but or I could just skip my turn and stay in this room. That was it, right? So I didn't really enjoy it all that much. It wasn't a bad game. It's just I get why the people like Zombicide like it. I just wasn't enamored personally.
I thought it was fine. It really did help that we had the movie in the background. Yeah. So it really brought out a lot of the stuff. Oh, that's what we're doing. That's what this is. And I love the original Night of the Living Dead. I think that's one of my favorite movies of all time when it comes to the horror genre. In fact, it is my favorite zombie movie of all time.
Yeah.
There are a few others that I like. Shaun of the Dead is a fantastic.
Yes. There is one thing I that did irk me about it, and that was you talked about AP in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? Let's say if I'm the first person on a round, it goes around, all three of us take a turn, and then the first player skips to the next person. So that means I have to wait 6 turns before my next turn, which these aren't short turns.
They're not.
So I'm glad you had the movie on, because that gave me something to do for a half hour.
And my other issue with this one, and it makes sense why they have it in this game, is the fact that you have to play all 6 characters. So we're playing a 3-person, and
which
every
is
single one of us...
always annoying for me.
We had to play 2 characters each.
Yeah.
Now, it was fun. It was thematic. It ticks all those boxes when you're coming to a zombie game. I found it fantastic. There was another part that irked me a little bit. I liked what it did, but it was also... I didn't like the whole now that you're in this mode, switch your mini. And it's doing the zombie side mode. So you start in Romero mode, which you're not as strong, and you're on the black and white side of your character.
Yeah.
And you have a gray piece on the board, which is cool.
Sure, yeah. I mean,
no,
it's a black and white movie.
It's a black and white movie, yeah.
Sure.
But when you get to a certain point, your threshold, you become zombie side mode. In this game, it was basically we were passing the gun around, and whoever passed the gun, because we're working together, gets to go into zombie side mode, the rifle.
Which is a slightly more upgraded version.
You have more powers and stuff like that, and so you flip it over. I'm like, I'm fine with the flipping my board over, but why should I have to change my mini out from the gray to the red?
And here's what I didn't like about that. I forgot about that. I'm glad you brought it up. It's like, okay, I get it. We're in a zombie side game.
Yeah.
Like, you don't... Like... There was no zombie side mode in the movie. So, like, I get it. It's a zombie side game, but just, like, patting yourself on the back a little much? Like, that's, like... That takes theme right out of it, right?
So, like, one of the things I'm going to do next time I play this game, I'm going to house roll it. Just keep the black and white minis on the games. Yeah, sure. The zombie side mode is fine. You're just flipping the piece over it. I can handle that, no problem.
Yeah.
I don't need the red minis on the board because I want that thematic. I do like the fact that they don't call them zombies in this game because they don't call them zombies in the movie. Yeah. They're ghouls in the game, which I liked a lot.
Yep.
I want to do some more of the scenarios to see what it is.
Silly because it's a zombie side game, not a ghoul side game.
I know, but
I get it, but still.
Yeah, I don't think the zombie reference happened till like the 10, 20 years after that because zombies themselves come from voodoo. Yeah. And so this was just reanimated dead. And so that's why they started calling them ghouls and stuff like that because of the European reference. Yep. I liked a lot of it, but I don't think it's going to move on because it's actually going up against one of my favorite games of all time, and that is Horrified.
Yep.
Horrified, I love the Universal Monster movies. As you can tell, right over my head over here, this side, is the Frankenstein monster, Bride of Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman. You might not see it too well, but there is a little Wolfman right in front of the Frankenstein monster there. I love this stuff. I really enjoy the thing, and the game is fantastic. I believe Prospero Hall.
Yes, it is.
The original one was made by Prospero Hall with a Ravensburger tie-in before they went over to Funko. It's pick up and deliver. You're trying to fight the different types of monsters. You can make it as difficult as you want or as easy as you want, depending on how many monsters you're facing. Easy is 2, normal is 3, hard is 4. Mm-hmm. You have in this one you have Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein. They count as one monster because you're working to them together. The Mummy, Dracula, the Wolfman, and the Invisible Man. Those are the monsters in this game. They all have their own different sets of rules that you have to play. Mm-hmm. And you always have to do 2 different types of rules. One of them is to get to a certain point, and then you can go into the final battle against that monster. You have villagers that are coming into the game. My favorite Easter egg of all board games is they have Wilbur and Chick, I think, are the characters.
Yep.
And those are the Abbott and Costello characters from the Abbott and Costello meets the Wolfman, meets the Mummy and stuff like that. And I have a lot of the Abbott and Costello movies based on these ones because they make me laugh every time. Every time these movies come on. And these are older movies, too. This really brings out the theme in a sense. It's not as thematic as some of the other movies, and in fact, I think Zombie Side is a little bit more thematic than the Horrified, because you do feel a little bit of the tension of the ghouls coming in. You have to go fight the ghouls and stuff like that. But I do like Horrified. I think it is a better game. Game immersion, I would probably give to Zombie Side or Night of the Living Dead, the Zombie Side game. Maybe on production because it's a CMON game and they go through the roof because of those little trays and stuff like that. But you have much more depth and strategy when you're talking about Horrified. It's a much simpler game to teach for that matter. Mm-hmm. And the replay value, both of them have a lot of scenarios that you can go through, but none of them really have an expansion. So for me, I just think Horrified moves on.
I think it's hands down the better game. I mean, Horrified is going to be it's always good in our list. And I just honestly didn't care much for the Zombicide game.
Yeah, but you've never been a Zombicide fan.
I never have, yeah. You're right on that. And it's just, again, if I could get the same fix for...
Yeah.
Like, if I have to wait as long to take my next turn as it takes for me to play a full game of, a simple, like, zombie, like, themed, like press your luck or simple game, right? Like... Why am I going to spend that much time in between?
And I think the big issue with that, too, is because it forces you to use 6 characters.
Yeah, it's a factor.
Yeah, because in a 3-player game, if there's only 2 other characters over it, that means if first player moves or when first player moves, that's just 4 people, 4 turns you have to wait.
Right.
For this one, you had to wait like 6 or 7 times before you get to do your actions.
8 full character turns.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is the big thing about it.
And God forbid if you played a 6-player game of it.
Oh, God.
Because then you would have to wait till your next turn if you pass it along. You would have to wait 10 full turns.
Yeah, it's
just to get back to you.
It's a bit rough. I will say this is the only Zombicide game I'll ever own, and it's the only one I ever said I would own, and only if I caught it on a deal. I caught it on a deal, so I picked it up.
Right. I mean, like, there's a reason I didn't put Evil Dead 2 as one of my honorable mentions, even though it's one of my favorite horror movies by far. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. But there's a reason I didn't put it as an honorable mention, because the game's not that good. Straight out. Like, I mean, I can't be more honest about it.
Yeah.
The game's not that great.
And that's right, Craig. Everything behind us is horror themed.
That's right.
I'm a nerd like that.
Him included. Anyway, so yeah, we agree. Horrified moves on. Let's move on to our last of the quarterfinal rounds. Nightmare Productions versus Alien Fate of Nostromo. And you'll be starting us off.
All right. Oh, by the way, Cup of Doom for everybody, for Crate. New Cup of Doom for the time being. All right, so the one I get is... You're really going to hate me. I got Nightmare Productions.
I'm not going to hate you that bad.
All right, so this one's an interesting concept. I am going to start in on Alien Fate of Nostromo real quick. I don't think it should move on. As much as I like the game itself, we were talking about it not too long ago with Ithri in our chat room.
Yeah.
And he's like, that game has no right to be as much meh as it is. Because it really is.
It's the most bad game in the world.
It is average at best.
In every factor.
Every way. It gives you a little bit of theme, but not much. Especially now after I've rewatched Alien.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, that really is much more of a letdown. Because I really don't feel the tension that the movie is giving me. Whereas, when we're talking about Nightmare Production, you're not really feeling that tension, but you're basically producers trying to set up horror films.
Yes.
And you're going through an auction, per se, to get yourself the best props or actors or just different material to finish off your films to get the most points. And heck, you can even build the worst film ever and still get points because it becomes a cult classic kind of thing. I love the fact that this was, I think, Silver Screen or Silver Cinema or something like that originally, and then Trick or Treat brought it over and like, oh, let's put a horror theme on it. Fine. Yep. I like everything about it. I'm not a huge Knizia fan, though I am becoming more and more because some of the simplistic nature of his games, I still don't like Lost Cities, and you could put a horror theme on it, and I probably won't like it if it's straight up Lost Cities. But Nightmare Production does a lot of things. You're playing over, I want to say 3 rounds, and you're just going through step by step your auction. What my favorite part about Nightmare Production, it is a closed economic system. So everybody knows how much money is there. So let's say there's 12 coins in there and it's split evenly or between everybody. So it's like 4 each.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to bid this much on this. So I'm going to bid, say, 3. And the winner ends up, or the loser ends up getting the money. And so now I know, oh God, I only have 1 coin. Everybody knows I only have 1 coin. So I'm going to open the bidding to 1 and see where it lies. Everybody's going to get something. It may not be what you need, but you're going to get something. Mm-hmm. I like that aspect of the game. I love the fact that if, depending on where your film is, when you go into the Comic-Con aspect, you have a better chance of getting what you need out of there. But those, nobody knows what they are until you get to that spot because they're face down on the board. It is a fun game that I really enjoy playing. In fact, it's going to be one that I bust out here soon because of the Halloween season. Yeah. Because I like how simple it is, how quick it plays, and just how fun it actually really is. So for me, I think Nightmare Production is the much better game and should move on.
All right, I want to talk some good things about my game, Alien: Fate of Nostromo. First off, the characters, they did a great job of getting the likenesses of the different characters. I forget the actress that...
Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney Weaver, yeah. They really captured it really well. The art on it
is... The Xenophore Mini is really nice,
too. The Xenophore Mini is really nice, and the cover is very striking. I like the cover a lot. Between this and Legendary Encounters, I think this one definitely brings out the alien factor of the cover and the art much better. With that being said, though, it's not a bad game, and it's actually pretty easy to pick up. You're basically just having to get certain things. You have to complete a few random objectives that came out, and then defeat the boss.
And then do the final objective.
Yep, the final objective. I said beat the boss, but we don't know what the final objective is until it is, right?
Yeah.
And you have a few different factors that you have to do as you're moving around the ship, gathering scrap, forging weapons, and just trying to defend yourself long enough without the Xenomorph taking you over. It feels somewhat tense throughout the whole game, but unfortunately it is like random upon random. When I remember what puts it into perfect perspective is at the end of that game, we all looked at each other like, we don't know what we could have done differently.
Yeah, we've played pretty efficiently.
Like we play games like this all the time. And there was one turn where we lost half of our collective life. It's just like that. Or how many terror level or whatever it is. I forget what it's called.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of co-op games. A good co-op game, you go back and you're like, oh, if I lost, okay. Well, if I thought back to this point, this was a pivotal point. I could have done this. I should have done this part. And next time I'm going to change my strategy this way, right? And you want to do it again. This is oh, okay. Well, yeah, it caught us.
Yeah.
That's about it, right? And I feel like it could have been better than that, but for some reason it just ended up being the most average game in the world.
It really, yeah.
Because I remember when we played it, here's the thing, right? I remember last time we played this, a few weeks ago. And you guys have all told me that we've played it before.
Mm-hmm.
And
your app tells you.
And I remember being there. And I remember all the other games we played that week. And this was 3 years ago, and I remember every other game, but for some reason there is a void in my memory from the time that game started to the time that game ended, and it, from a week after that to, a few weeks ago, it completely voided my memory entirely.
Mm-hmm.
That's how average and uneventful this game was. So, I know I'm arguing the point of it, but you and I both very much agree already that Nightmare Productions needs to move on.
Yeah, well, it's funny because Chaos is saying, yeah, you're really selling it for her. But it's funny, when we played this game, just recently, it was a few weeks back, or about, when this airs, it was a few weeks back.
Yeah.
When we played this, you and me both looked at each other and were like, whatever it gets matched up with is more than likely going to have a bye, because this game is just that. It's just meh. It's fine. It's structurally fine. It's mechanistically fine. It does what it needs to do.
Right.
But it's average at best.
Yeah.
I honestly would rate it 5.
I'd rate it a 4,
6.
maybe.
I say it's average. It's a fine game. There's nothing inherently flawed about it. But it's just meh.
Yeah. I could see a lot of families who don't get into board games who pick this up, and since it's relatively simple to get into, just take a few actions, try to avoid the thing as it's moving around. I can appreciate that fact of it, and I do think that there's a lot of people who are going to like this, which is why it's ranked so high on our list, honestly. But when it comes down to it, we're gamers, right?
Yeah.
And every game doesn't have to be the most immersive, thematic thing in the world for us to be enjoying it. But as far as horror movie games go, this doesn't hold a candle to a lot of them.
The thing about this one, too, is, again, a lot of these things that we've talked about that are based off the horror movies.
Sure.
Zombicide, or Night of the Living Dead Zombicide game. That gives you a lot of the thematic based on the movie.
Yes.
The Legendaries encounters Alien. That gives you more of the thematicness of the movie because that tension when things are coming up, don't be an egg kind of thing.
Yeah.
What is the other one? Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You do feel the tension or the movie coming out of there.
Barely holding on to life as you're making all this noise hoping for the best and you just flatten half of us.
This doesn't give you that. No. There is some tension, but it was more along the lines of like, oh, I went in here, the monster's here, now I gotta run away from this room that I was trying to go to. Yeah. It is very
it takes me twice as many turns.
Yeah, it's very mechanical, and that's a shame because I love Alien. It is one of my favorite series out there. And it doesn't give you that feel. I bet you, and I haven't done it yet, but in Final Girl Season 2, there is an Alien theme in there called Evil Morph. I bet you that's going to give me more feel of the movie than the actual game is.
Well, let's think about, like, thematically, right? Like, I always judge IP games. Like, if it makes me interested in the lore or the backstory behind it. Yeah. And if I play an IP-based game and I want to go watch the movie after, that's a great sign. This, I don't want to watch Alien. I don't care. Like, if Alien, the movie, is anything like the board game, that's going to be a very boring movie. Yeah. And that's how I felt, you know?
And it's not a boring movie. It's not.
Yeah. And I haven't seen it, and I think I'm going to wait a little bit longer because of this game, and that's a shame.
I highly recommend you watch the movie, though, because it's really going to make you dislike the board game more.
So how dare you?
Yeah, exactly. How dare you put this great movie in a bad taste?
Yeah, there you go.
All right, with that being said, we had 4 eliminations this round. The first elimination was our number 8 seed, Halloween. It had 1% of the vote. Our number 2 seed, Legendary Encounters, an Alien deck building game, had 18% of the vote. It was our number 2 seed, so there is love for that one. Mm-hmm. I have it as Zombicide because it's just much easier to remember. Night of the Living Dead, a Zombicide game, had 1% of the vote, which was our 6th seed. And finally, our 5 seed, Alien Fate of the Nostromo, had 1% of the vote, so gamers are agreeing with us as well.
Very good.
With that being said, we're moving into the second round, the semifinals. We have 4 games left. First up here is our number 1 seed, Final Girl, going up against the 7 seed, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Slaughterhouse.
All right. Here we go. I'll be starting this round off. I feel like I could solidly argue any of these.
Yeah, both of these are really good. Yeah. So. All right, so you get Texas Chainsaw.
Okay, again, going back to it, and this, first off, I want to say, I really like Van Ryder's productions. I think their attention for detail is really fantastic. They're even down to the idea of making the boxes into the boards, absolutely brilliant for Final Girl. But they are going against a Funko game, and Funko, they were able to make their top tier price line was $30, $35. Like, they pretty much would never sell games more than that. And this is, I think, a $30 game retail. Mm-hmm. And the amount of production that they have in it, the toy factor alone, the minis that are in it are good. All of the boards, the cards are good quality. They even have a little, like, ice chest box for your cards. And as you unlock certain things and get past certain objectives throughout the games and beat certain scenarios, you unlock certain cards that you put in the ice chest for the next one. That's really cool. All of the pieces are good. The dice are beautiful. As far as production goes, like, they have a lot of the similar components. I feel like this pushes the production a little bit more. Where Final Girl it's really, really solid. But I think for me personally, I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre is just a little bit above, a little bit. But hold on. Hold it. Let me get into the rest of the argument. So, because
I'm just
replay value, not even a comparison. Final Girl is crazy replay value. I mean, the fact that they technically don't sell a base box, you need to buy it with a companion.
At least one expansion.
It's, that could be made an argument of like, well, technically there's no replay value because the base box isn't. No. You literally pick your flavor out of 30-something different options or whatever there's. There's 24 options technically.
3, 4, 5, so 10 options right there, but you get 2 Final Girls for each one, 1 villain.
Yeah. 2 final girls for 1 villain, and a location, right? Which means you can change any one of your 2 final girls times your location times the number of villains you have, right? So that is crazy exponential replay value if you have any of that stuff. So that's not even an argument as far as, yeah. Texas Chainsaw Massacre has 5 scenarios. But anyway, going into it though, there's always an issue that I have with Final Girl, and the reason I don't play it, I used to play Hostage Negotiator quite a bit, and we talked about that. And when Final Girl came out, I was like, that's obviously the one I want to go with. It's beautiful. I got rid of Hostage Negotiator, and I've played Final Girl twice since then. And the sad part is I own like 6 expansions for it. And the reason I've only played it twice is because there's always this initial level of there's a relearning curve, as I call it. Like it's like I already know how to play it, and I could probably figure it out pretty easily and trudge along. But since it's been more than a month, I have to kind of relearn parts of the game. So that's why I would give Texas Chainsaw Massacre personally ease of play, because I don't feel like there's that quite up to that level of, oh yeah, I got to relearn it. And so much to the point, like, if you watch, like, a how-to-play video, Texas Chainsaw Massacre was 11 minutes. Final Girl, I think it was, like, a 40-minute game from Rodney Smith, like, talking about how it works. Like, it's light and day, right? But that's not what we're really talking about. We're talking about immersion. That's where these games are supposed to shine.
And shine really well.
And both shine really well. Final Girl really brings out the villains, the areas, the abilities on all of it. It's super hardcore immersive. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you can't shake a candle at, or you can't always shake a candle at Prospero Hall. They know what they're doing. They know how to take an IP and bring it out thematic. So much to the point that I think it really brings it out as you're searching the property, trying to avoid all the figures that are moving around, just trying your best to survive as best as you can. Mm-hmm. And again, I know why you don't like the meaningful choices, how random it can be. Granted, Final Girl is going to have the same issues.
But you have mitigation in Final Girl.
No, not as much. Not nearly as much.
I have no mitigation in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
No, you do. You have the deck to go through, which is a defined quantity of items. If there's 32 cards in there, then at least by 32 cards, 32 times you're going to do that. You could roll a die 32 times in a row and get a failure every time. I'm saying dice are more random than cards. That's true. No, put the lightsaber away. You know I'm right on that. Dice are more random than cards. That's why they use dice for random. That's how that works.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre has both dice and cards.
Yes, and you roll like crap either way. But I was rolling fine. I'm just saying, like, as far as those...
You weren't rolling dice at all, really.
No, but you were... See, here's the thing, right? You had ways to add on guaranteed hits. Put it away. No. Save it for the last round when it matters.
Go ahead.
No, I'm done. You go ahead.
All right, going into...
I've been physically threatened. Y'all saw it.
I just pulled out a lightsaber. I didn't make any threats
Masmo,
whatsoever.
I'm glad you enjoy it when we disagree. I fear for myself right now. Carry on.
All right, moving on to... Exactly. That's the only reason why...
In honor of James Earl Jones, that's right.
All right, so when it comes to Final Girl,
rest in peace.
Game immersion, to me, both of these games are fun to lose.
Yeah.
My big issue, again, and that's more in the meaningful choice aspect of the things, is you're saying, like, it's much more mitigating. Like, I can discard cards to mitigate a dice roll in Final Girl. There's nothing I
Only if you roll a 4.
It's a 3 or a 4.
Okay.
1, 2 are straight failures. 3 and 4 can be discard cards.
So if you roll 1 or 2, then you can't mitigate it.
Yeah, but I'm only beholden to the dice roll. And when you're playing the Slaughterhouse, the Slaughterhouse family, I'm beholden to the dice roll plus the deck of cards, which doesn't get shuffled It's like, if something gets buried, I have to keep being successful in going through the deck, and there's no mitigation of that other than roll the dice and be successful. That's my only mitigation that I can be. Nothing I could do about it. And so if I buried the things that I need to get to you towards the end of the game, that is a big problem. But going into my game immersion, as I was saying originally, both games are fun to lose. There's more player interaction in Slaughterhouse. There is more memorable moments in Final Girl. Because I remember some of the aspects of when you're fighting certain things. Mm-hmm. My favorite one I keep going to is Dr. Frightmare, where you're like, do I move the card here or do I move the card there? Do I move the card over here? Is he going to pop up? Am I going to die? What's going there? Oh, this is what happened. Going on to your argument about the art and production, both are really cool. But the one thing I think Final Girl has is that not only if you're just buying the game boxes, you have your core box and then you have the game boxes, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the core box, the first part is your player area. The other box for the Final Girl characters, those are also your game mats and stuff like that. So your board is based on the box. The pieces and components are through the roof on this one. The art is fantastic. The pieces and components are fantastic. And for me, that is why I think the graphic design and the art and production and all that value goes to Final Girls, because of the way the boxes are. And so like it comes out, it looks like a VHS, and it comes out and it becomes your player board and all the stuff that you're doing. Meaningful choice. I've already explained my issues with Slaughterhouse. The arbitrary choices really does bother me. And the AP really bothered me. As I mentioned earlier, I was able to go to the bathroom, make another cup of coffee before it's back to my turn in a 3-player game. You were complaining about what is it? Zombicide, the Night of the Living Dead Zombicide.
Just because of the turn order structure. That's my biggest issue.
But that turn order structure, you got to your turn a lot quicker than I got to my turn.
That is not true.
That is true.
You just did more on your turn in Zombicide. I was like, I'll move, I'll do this, I'll search. Cool, I failed. Anyway.
Yeah.
I'll wait 20 minutes till my next turn.
But that's my thing.
But that's not our argument, though.
Yeah, but I was able to... You got to get to your turn a lot faster than I got to get my turn because of the arbitrary choice aspects. The ease of play, I will give you that that Slaughterhouse is much easier because I do have to... And the big thing about it, too, when you're talking about Final Girl, if you have the one core box in one expansion or whatever you want to call it, the movie and stuff, if you play that enough times, yeah, you know how it plays. But because the fact that you have to teach yourself each of the different villains, you have to teach yourself each of the different Final Girls' asymmetric powers, you also have to teach yourself the different areas that you're going to be playing in. So there's like a Poltergeist version where you're playing it in a house, but if you're playing against Hans, you're playing at a campsite. So there is a lot where you're not teaching. You have to teach yourself so many times. Whereas Slaughterhouse, you know how it plays, and then it introduced new rules. Replay value, Slaughterhouse is not going to touch Final Girl at all. So for me, I think Final Girl moves on. But Slaughterhouse is a fantastic game.
Yeah. I mean, again, I give ease of play to Slaughterhouse. I give replay value to Final Girl easily. Art and production, I think that's a wash, honestly, just because they both have really great points to them.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm like looking through it. I don't. I mean, so
if
meaningful choice is weird, right? Because there's no impacting other players, so I won't. That doesn't even count, right?
Yeah.
But depth of like you are. Final Girl is the only game I'm willing to put up with that much random. But it is dice roll for everything you do. That is every little part of it. You're not searching for stuff. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. You are rolling dice to attack. You're rolling dice to maneuver around. You're rolling dice to search. It's all dice. And there's ways to mitigate the 3 and the 4. That's it. Whereas in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there is just not that. Yeah, there's more for you, but not for us players. So I think that's worth factoring in.
But here's the thing. You're only accounting for a third of the player group.
Versus 100% of Final Girl. No, I know you're not going to budge on it. You already made your decision.
Well, no, it's
I'm just
because
saying,
you're not giving the arbitrary choice a sound argument, because I'm beholden to two things. At least there's a mitigation in Final Girl. There is no mitigation for the Slaughterhouse.
Yes, there is. You have the Slaughter family cards or whatever those cards that you could discard to reroll, and you've done them many times.
Yes, but you have to make sure you have those cards in your hand.
Which
towards the end of the
very
game,
much
I did
fancy.
not.
Yeah.
And then you kept making me reroll too. So
right, because I had to survive.
That's what I'm saying. It's just,
Yeah,
I am willing to call it a wash, and we'll go to the vote. I have not looked at the vote.
I'm cool with calling that part a wash for sure. The game immersion and meaningful choice, yeah, both a wash. They each get 1 point for sure. Replay value needs to play. I'm cool with calling it to the vote. I'm just like, they are so similar in many aspects. Yeah. They're very different games, but they're so similar.
And I'll even do one favor. I'll refresh it. This way it's clear as day for us.
Oh, yeah. I know which one's moving on. But I really think, like, I think it's because Texas Chainsaw Massacre is so new that not enough people have figured it out, and they haven't supported it. But, yeah,
but
I don't
think
think
it's
even close.
too, it's also Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Not a lot of people enjoy Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
True. Yeah.
So Final Girl moves on.
Handily.
Yeah. 1% to 23%.
Yep. All right. Now we're going to be moving on to Horrified versus Nightmare Productions.
So here's a thing about this one. We're talking about two very thematic games, and then we're going to two games that have themes on them.
Yeah, have themes. Not have theme. They have themes.
Yeah.
They are both with a theme. Yes, that's about as much as we can say. I'll be starting off this one.
All right, you are starting off with Nightmare Productions.
Okay, so
by the way, Masmos, the Cup of Doom for this month.
I mean, I didn't say hi, Masmos. Welcome. Nightmare Production, got to rep the Knizia, all right? Again, you're starting to love Knizia. You're starting to see the beauty of his designs. This is a simple design. The closed auction is very meaningful. I remember there was multiple times. There is some very exciting, memorable moments in this game. Specifically, and I'm going to tell the story because I love it, when you guys were... I did the math in my head. I'm like, all right, we each have like, what, 10 money.
I love this part.
We have like 10 money. This is 1/4 of the rounds that's coming out. But there's potentially like 6 points. This has 2 of those, so that's 1/3. So I could bid up to $4, and that would make perfect sense for an average. And you guys start dropping like $8, $9, and $10. I'm like, what are you seeing in this? This is not worth anything close to this. And I'm like, you're bidding wildly for something that's worth like 2 points. And then our friend Dom just looked at me and was like, gotta spend money to make money. I'm like, I get that, but you're going to be broke. And then there was even one part where, and then another story where I had
this is the story I thought you were going to
how much money was there amongst all of us? Like,
I think it was like...
36 maybe?
Something like that. I think it was, you start with...
I think it was like 12, right?
9 each, I think. Something like that.
Yeah. I think it was like $12 or something. But closed auction, right?
Yeah.
And I had like $30. So it was like $6 amongst you guys. And you just were like, I'll bid 3. I'm like either, or no, you said you bid an amount, and I was like,
I bid
either
you out,
you're lying or you're like crazy broke. And it's like, I don't know.
No, and then we started doing the bidding, and you looked at Dom, and you're like, Dom, you broke.
You broke, dude. Like, what are you? Don't even act like you can bid right now. I have all the money.
Not realizing that I had a lot of the money too, because even you were like, "How much money do you have? What's going on?"
Yeah, I was like, none of it made sense, and I'm trash at auction games anyway. I like them quite a bit, but like those memorable moments made it really, really enjoyable for me. The rest of the game I didn't care for. I loved that actions and stuff. I didn't feel the theme came out per se. I didn't feel like bidding on the action or the stars really worked or the characters or whatever. It was very much a pace it on theme, so I never felt that it was a horror movie thing. I could see how it got re-implemented. But the closed auction was fantastic, and that's really what Knizia excels on.
Yeah.
Is taking a really simple mechanism and making it really special. And that's why, and of course, Nightmare Productions has an amazing production value because Trick or Treat Studios does exactly that.
Trick or Street?
Trick or Street. Trick or Street. I had a stroke there for a moment. Sorry.
That's water, right?
Yeah, it's just, surely. I don't have my Dutch Bros endorsement today. Trick or Treat Studios, they really do a great job of building up this great production. And the people that work there, they're just good people. I like them a lot. So I got to rep them. Nightmare Productions. I'm not sure if it's going to move on, but I do quite like them.
Here's the thing. I got to argue Horrified. And again, it's one of my favorite games of all time because of the
theme.
As
one of mine.
Because of the theme on it and how simple it is. It is probably by far one of the simplistic games on this list. Going up against a very simplistic game. So it's like, ooh, which one gets ease of play kind of thing. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. But for me, when we're talking about like game immersion, both of these games are fun to lose. I think Horrified's just slightly more fun because you actually can get some of that tension aspect where it's like, all right, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to go collect that thing, but we need a color to come out of that bag.
Yep.
And so where that can lend to arbitrary choices, everybody's just sitting watching the things come pulled out of the bag. Please be yellow, please be a yellow, we need a yellow. And then a yellow happens and people cheer.
Yeah.
It does lead to that stuff. There is some player interaction because you're talking to each other, you're working with together. Well, I can go to that spot and get the things that we need over there, but I need you to come here because we need to trade. But if you do that, you can bring this villager over here to help us get like the good cards that help us out. And then you're looking at the deck and like, ooh, do we have enough turns for that? Because the way you lose this game is either the tension level or the terrifying level or the horrified level, I guess it's what it's called, gets up to the highest point. Terror level gets up to the highest point, or you run out of cards to draw for the bad guys.
Yep, ran out of time.
And so you're sitting there looking at that, you're watching the level there. It's like, do we save that villager? Can we afford that point going up? So you get a lot of that immersiveness for a game which is straightforward to pick up and deliver. That's really what at its core is. But what's really cool about it too is like you feel the theme coming out of certain characters. Like the creature from the Black Lagoon is the only creature or thing that can go across waterways and stuff like that. And you're like, oh, what is going on here?
Yeah.
The art production is through the roof on this one. You got the cool little minis, decent standees. The card stock is a little flimsy, but it's again to keep your point total or your price point low. The graphic design, this version, the graphic design is fantastic. Other versions, there is some issues, but we're arguing Horrified, the original. Fantastic. Meaningful choice. This one is chock full of meaningful choice. Nightmare Production has a lot of meaningful choices. But it's more of you're trying to bluff the other players in a sense. It's like, I'm bidding this.
It's less meaningful choices and more meaningful choice.
Yeah. It's like, how much money am I going to bid?
Yeah.
Which means there's a lot more strategy. So I think Horrified does move on. Now, I want to argue ease of play really quick here. And it's because the simplicity and familiarity of the mechanism. One is you're making horror movies. One is the Universal monster movies.
All right, but yeah, like I mean, I get your reasons, but like, yeah, it is a pick up and deliver, right?
Yeah.
But I agree. Horrified, I think, is just the better of the two games, because after all these years, we still want to play more Horrified.
Yeah. To the point, I have 4 different versions.
Yeah, exactly. I have all 4 as well, and I bought most of those just because of how much the original one meant to me, right? And not saying Nightmare Productions was bad. It's a fine game, and it's good, and it's enjoyable, and I will play it again, but I don't feel like that needs to be in my collection because it doesn't feel that well. Now, the difference is which one feels more thematic in that issue as far as that. The game immersion isn't about what we're doing in Horrified. It's about how the monsters work. And that's the biggest part about it. Since each one of those are asymmetric in how they work, we're doing the same old stuff. We don't have to relearn how we're doing it. We just have to figure out what is the new problem with the new monster that comes out. And that's where I feel like the immersion really, really bring in a big factor into it, as well as the game meaningful choice, because it's a different way that we have to complete our task.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you, and I think we're both in agreement that Horrified is going to move on to face Final Girl in the final round. Both are really good games. I like Nightmare Production. I'm glad I own it. I tend to want to support Trick or Treat Studios because I like what they're doing.
100%. You should always buy as many games and support whatever studios you appreciate what they're doing.
Yeah, and so like I have a lot. So you can see several here. There's 2 there. There's 2 up there. There's several over there.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing, though. Speaking of, and I agree, Horrified is moving on.
Yeah.
Before we get any further, though, speaking of supporting companies that you really like, I got to give a shout out real quick. Level 99 Studios. Speaking of horror movie games, they are currently running a Kickstarter. This is not paid, by the way. We're doing this on our own time. Mm-hmm. They are doing a game called Spooktacular, where it's basically you could play as one of like 20 different like horror movie monsters or whatever, trying to like. And
this is really for the people who are watching this live.
If you're watching it live,
because this is going to air on October 1st. It will already be done by a week or so.
Yeah, it'll be done by a week. So if you're watching this live, go back them. Like, go support the company. It looks like a really fun game, and they're doing all sorts of fun, really announcements about like how the different characters work, and it's chock full of B-movie goodness. Looks awesome. But I had to say that before we get into our final round. What were the stats on the movies that got eliminated?
So, first up, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Slaughterhouse was defeated by Final Girl. They only had 1% of the vote. And Nightmare Productions, our number 4 seed that was just debunked by Horrified, it only had 1% of the vote. So, the games that are loved are high up there.
Yeah, 5 of our 8 games only had 1% of the vote.
Yeah, and so some of the honorable mentions from the fans, they also had some votes. So, let's do this real quick. Fearsome Floor was sitting at 4%. Last Night on Earth, 4%.
Yep.
Nemesis had 16% of the vote. So, The Thing, Infection at Outpost 31 was 1%. Last Friday was 1%. Alien, Another Glorious Day in the Core, had 4%.
All right. So let's go into our final round. And before we talk about the final round, as always, I do not flip the coin of doom for the final round.
The Cup of Doom is done for the day.
That's right. So we're just going to break it down point by point. Again, we have game immersion, art and production, meaningful choice, ease of play, and replay value. Daniel, is there any of these that are immediately obvious?
There are 2 that are obvious to me. Ease of play is Horrified.
Yes.
Replay value is Final Girl.
Yes. 100% agree with that. I feel like the hardest one for me to argue is possibly art and production, which we could talk about here in a bit. Meaningful choice is also a bit tricky, and game immersion. Actually, I want to talk about game immersion first.
Fine. Let's go.
Because I feel out of all of these, like the biggest part about the immersion in Horrified is how differently the monsters work and how they cater to that. Mm-hmm. Well, that asymmetry is also very prevalent in Final Girl.
Yeah, very much so.
And not only just that, like the different locations work on that as well.
Yeah.
I will say though, it does kind of work against it. The fact that they are so modular, that means that means like one villain doesn't utilize one area better than others. It's just it's compatible. It's not.
The poltergeist is not going to work very well in the campgrounds.
Right, exactly. It is compatible. It's not designed for it, right? So there's a little bit of lack of immersion on that. But like you said earlier, Creature from Black Lagoon is the only one that can move on water spaces, which is awesome, right?
All right, so going into game immersion, which game is more fun to lose? Because I like both of these games really well. For me, personally, I think Final Girl tends to be more fun to lose because you're like, what could I have done better? And you're thinking about stuff like that. And it's like, okay, let me run this back. And it's much more easier to set up to do certain things because depending on which monsters you're fighting. Yeah. However, when we're going into the other parts for me, I think Horrified wins game immersion because player interaction. It's a solo game. You don't really have much player interaction.
Right, but do you feel like that Final Girl's like clinging on to life, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like you really do in that.
Yeah, you do get that action. However, I'm also going into the memorable moments. And as much as I've played Final Girl, there is just much more memorable moments. Like, you're like, okay, can we pull this off? We have 2 cards to draw. And if you're successful, you're like, oh, that's great. Or you're like, okay, what's about to happen? When you roll those dice and it hits the Invisible Man's exclamation point, he wipes the freaking board from a certain section that has the most cubes, and you're like, no, don't do that. We needed those and stuff like that. So Horrified tends to lend to more memorable moments. That's why I think Game Immersion goes to Horrified.
I personally think it actually goes to Final Girl, and the reason I think that is because you kind of said it right there. It's like, hey, we really need this yellow item. Bring it out. It's like, well, what are those items, right? It's like, there's some garlic. There's like a cross or whatever. It's like you don't feel like those are the items. It's like, hey, guess what? We need a power 6 red item, and we need a power 3 blue item. If anybody can get the I don't feel like any part of that the flavor comes out in it.
Okay.
Other than I'm just trying to solve a mini game puzzle versus this. It's like, hey, I really do need this item to defeat this guy, or I got to bring these survivors over here and save them. Villagers in Horrified, I feel like they're we get a good benefit if we save them, but they're mostly expendable, right? Whereas
to an extent, because if they die, the terror level goes up.
Yeah, but I feel like you're way more invested in Final Girl.
Okay.
So, I'm going to call that a wash.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll count that as a wash for game immersion.
Art production. Let's go to meaningful choice.
Yes. We're going to have to come back to that. Meaningful choice. There's a lot of tactics in...
Yes, great. People be expendable.
People be expendable, yeah. Meaningful choice. I feel like just because of how dice-heavy Final Girl is, I think Horrified gets meaningful choice, personally.
At points, yeah, because Horrified it has some dice in there that do bad things to you.
Yeah, it's more just if the monsters come up to you, that's the only time that you roll dice. Mm-hmm. And we joked about this before. It's just because Prospero Hall always uses three dice.
Yeah.
And they just find a way to put 3 dice into every game, right? And really, the only time you ever roll it is if they come up to you and to see if they attack you. Whereas, literally, every action you do is dice in Final Girl. That's not to say it's not thematic or not. You don't have a lot of choices leading up to that point. But again, if I just roll nothing but blanks again and again and again, I have no chance.
Yeah, I get that. I get what you're saying. That the dice is heavy, and you hate dice because they hate you. That's your only problem with dice is because you suck at dice rolling.
There's not skill involved. There's not meaningful choice involved with dice.
But
it is random on
But the
purpose.
meaningful choice you get in Final Girl is how you use your time as well. Because you play your cards out, and you have to use time based on that. Any time left over means you can possibly get better cards into your deck.
Agreed.
Because every time you use cards, they move out of your deck. And so that's what I like about that is because it's that push and pull tactical choice of, okay, I'm going to do this. I can do really, really good moves, but this is going to spend a lot of my time. And therefore, now I'm probably only going to be able to afford pulling up my basic cards again. So it's that push and pull aspect. And yes, you have the dice. You have a good chance of mitigating it compared to some other games because you have what is it? It's a 6-sided dice, so you have 4 chances to at least get a hit.
Sure.
Yeah, you have to discard cards to mitigate it if you get a certain point. So there is mitigation there.
But all the cards have a dice-based result. Well, with a handful of few that don't.
Yeah.
But most of them, they all have that, hey, if you roll 2 or more successes, or if you roll 1 hit, or if you roll 0 hits, this is what you deal with.
Yeah.
But in Horrified, if you play it accurately enough and strategically enough, you could avoid being attacked by the monsters pretty much at any time. And then even if you are attacked by monsters, they might still attack you, but you're in no way beholden to the dice rolling. It might hurt if they attack you. You might lose some items, but you can plan against that. Yeah. So it's not mitigating the dice, it's just pre-planning against it. That's why I feel like one game is just heavily reliant on it, where the other one it's a very minor thing in the back just to AI some systems.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I just don't think you're giving Final Girl its due justice. I agree with you. I think more than likely Horrified's winning meaningful choice. Right. Because you are impacting other players' strategy. The game will impact your strategy. Right. So if you're playing the AI, there is some impacting there. Mm-hmm. But the depth of strategy, tactic, and skills, you have to communicate with your partners about, okay, I got to do this, and you got to use your asymmetric power just right. Because you can't even unlock the Final Girl's final power until you get to a certain point where you saved enough victims to get on her ability and stuff like that. So there is some mitigation and stuff like that. I know what you're trying to say, and I agree with you. But just because it's dice roll, you're just Yeah, rah, get off my lawn.
Then let's count depth of or arbitrary choices impact. Let's call that for horrified.
Yeah.
And count that to just the dice, and we'll call it that.
Okay.
Depth of tactics and strategies. Which one is easier to adjust how you play, or have a long-term strategy in it? Which one do you feel is gives you more of a long term or more ability to adapt with what you have to encounter?
That is the actual hard one for me, in all honesty, because depending on what Final Girl you're playing, depending on what you want to do, because sometimes you want to rescue victims.
Yeah.
For you to have your ability to move forward, you know what I mean? So this way you can have your special powers, so you can do some extra stuff. So that's why it's like, there's a lot of depth. It's like, okay, if I do this, then I can get this power. But if I do this instead, I get to do this ability instead.
Right.
So there is a lot of push and pull, and you have to be smart of, you got to read what's going on in the board.
Your timing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I like a lot of that aspect of Final Girl. And the same thing, though, in Horrified. And the big part of it, the Horrified, too, is that you don't know what's seeding the board. Because it's all drawn out of the bag, and what gets used stays out of the bag until the bag is empty.
Yeah.
So it's just like you have to. It's another one of those where you have to play as you're going. There's no long-term strategy per se. You have to see what's happening and see what you can do. And so that's another thing. And then you got to be careful about with the victims on both of these games, because in Horrified, it raises the terror level.
Yeah.
If the villain kills enough of the victims,
that's game over.
Well, that's not just the game over. They become more powerful too.
Yeah.
They get closer to their final scene aspect.
Yeah, they escalate.
Yeah, they escalate. So it's like, man, they both have a lot of choices. For me, where I think it's going to happen is Horrified impacts other things that's going on. Whereas in Final Girl, anything you do is just impacting on your strategy.
Yeah.
So for me, that's how I think Horrified wins, is because it impacts not just you, it impacts the board, it also impacts the other players.
I don't disagree with that. Yeah, so meaningful choice goes to Horrified.
Yep.
All right. So now, I have a question to ask you.
What's that?
And this will help determine how we debate this part, because now we're going into art and production. With a core box and any one of the base game boxes, I think that's considered the base game, right?
Yeah, in a sense. In a sense, right? They're actually selling the base game with the core box now.
Right. Yeah, the starter kit, right?
Yeah.
Which is 100%, I think, the way that you should go when learning or when playing it. None of those include minis.
No.
And they only have like little meeples to judge by the pieces. Now, with that being said, though, you have an epic version, right? That has like a VCR, has a playmat, and it has, or a VCR, like it looks like a VCR.
Not cheap, by the way.
Not cheap, and you can also buy the minis separately.
And the thing is, like, you can buy that set. Some stores carry that set.
Right, yeah, just like the box alone, right? Yeah, which is awesome. So the question that I wonder, and the question I have, do we want to consider that what I consider deluxe components as part of the argument?
I would say no.
Okay. I agree with that, because it's not.
The reason why I'm saying
included.
No is I try to tend to do this, because this is a Kickstarter exclusive thing, is what I have there, and now they're selling in the stores. It's what I can pick up Horrified at Target or Barnes & Noble, and I can pick up the starter set at Barnes & Noble.
Yes.
So I'm going based on what they're selling that you can pick up in your FLGS or a local store that sells it.
Yes.
That's how I want to do this, because though this is nice, this was also something that you had to do special for the Kickstarter version with the minis, and you had to buy all the extra stuff. This is not what everybody's going to be able to get, whereas the starter set and Horrified are what everybody's able to get.
Okay. Cool. All right. I just wanted to clear that up, because that would have been I think that would have pushed Final Girl up to the top.
Yeah.
But it's also like $200 something for something like
Yes.
that, right? It's not cheap. So art and productions, pieces and components, graphic design. The graphic design.
Both artwork is fantastic.
Yeah, both artwork is great. I don't think there's a way to say one is better than the other. They're both awesomely campy. They both work really well. Pieces and components. They have the minis. The card's a little chintzy.
This is where we're going to have issues with the pieces and components. Because the game board is also your game box in Final Girl.
Yes. No, and I think that's a fantastic component.
With the magnetics. That's what I'm saying. It's like, this is where we're... But I like the fact that you get minis and Horrified for relatively cheap, too.
Yes.
So it's like... Mm.
Yep, because Ravensburger did a great job with the production, and I even like how they put the campy little message of beware on the back of the board.
That message is based on the message that happens in the very first Universal Monster movie, Frankenstein.
Yep.
It is the guy comes out, he gives you this warning, and then they play the movie.
Yeah, which I love. Right,
I love that aspect of it. Yeah.
And so the graphic design, the iconography is pretty good in Final Girl. I feel it's better
fantastic in Horrified. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
So with that being said, I think Pieces of Components I do think goes to Final Girl.
Final Girl, yes. Because of that board game
system. Of the box, yeah. And that's just such a really good system.
It's really neat how it just... And it's magnetic, so it looks like a VHS, an old VHS, or a book or something like that, and you just pull it off, and there's your game board, and you pull the other half off, and that's where your play board is.
Yes. Yeah. Super smart. Art, wash, graphic design, Horrified. So this is a wash.
This is a wash, which means, the way I'm looking at it, we have 2 washes, 1 Final Girl in replay value, and 2 Horrified, so Horrified wins 2-1, and is our number 1 horror movie.
And here's the thing, right? Let's say, hypothetically, if we had a wash on this, tell them the stats of what got voted for.
Oh my god. I just looked at it right now.
Same here.
So, if this ended up a wash, and we always say the fan vote is our tiebreaker, the fan vote would have not done us well.
No.
You have Final Girl at 23%, Horrified at 23%. I believe those are our 2 highest vote getters, too.
Yes, easily.
Yeah.
Yep.
They are equally loved.
Yep. And that's out of 59 votes, so I think that's literally the exact same number of votes.
Yeah, so that is impressive.
Yeah.
That is very impressive.
We would have had to thrown it to our live audience, who's Masmo and Creative Chaos.
Yeah. So, all in all, this was a fantastic debate. I really enjoyed the discussion.
Yep.
I also really enjoyed, pulling out the lightsaber just for,
You just did that to do it. Yeah. You did that. You didn't have any intent. You were agreeing with me. You just didn't want to admit it. That's all that was. All right. Well, we want to thank you for tuning in. If you ever want to contact us directly, you certainly can, whether it's to email us for possible future contests, which we'll be discussing possibly soon. Mm-hmm. Give us ideas for upcoming episodes, or even just to reach out and say hello. Email us at everydayboardgames2020@gmail.com. Also, follow us at instagram.com/everydayboardgames, where we post videos, reels, and shorts. Shorts is YouTube. Yeah. But and pictures of the games that we've been playing lately, as well as little skits or whatever we end up doing for it.
As well as all video re-uploads and reviews and shorts are found on YouTube under youtube.com/@everydayboardgames. And if you like what we do, there are 3 things you can do to help us grow on the platform. Subscribe if you're not, like the video, and comment down below and tell us your thoughts on the subject.
If you want to join us for a live taping of this episode, we stream live at twitch.tv/everydayboardgames. Join us like our friends Creative Chaos or Masmos or anybody else who tuned in today and join in on our discussion. We'd love to hear what you guys say about it, whether that's critique Daniel or to critique Daniel. We enjoy it either way.
And as well, all audio versions can be found on most podcast platforms under Everyday Board Games Podcast. This includes Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, and Apple.
So we want to thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I've been your host, Daniel.
And I've been your host, Daniel.
And we want to thank you for listening to Everyday Board Games.
And remember, every day is a good day for board gaming.